Hello and welcome to TrekChatz, a Star Trek first time watch podcast. I'm Alan, and I'm joined as always by the Vedic Ryle to my Vedic win. It's Magellan. Oh. Fuck, I fucked it up. I'm sorry, continue. Keep going.
I'm here to do whatever you ask of me.
And ultimately, perish it tragically.
Yeah, but in like a pretty, noble way.
Yeah, in like a based way. I've turned the music off. We're now just talking. This is a Star Trek podcast.
Welcome everybody to the Star Trek podcast.
Is it controversial or problematic that I'm wearing a Dune shirt, a Surf Arrakis shirt, for the Star Trek podcast?
Are you asking me to choose between controversial or problematic, or for me to assess both of those separately?
I'm asking you to tell me what adjective you'd use to describe the fact that I'm wearing a Dune shirt on the Star Trek podcast.
I would say flames.
Skibbity. Oh. Yeah.
Skibbity, yeah. I think it's pretty riz. Skibbity riz.
It's pretty riz. How are you, Ensign?
I was considering wearing a Star Trek shirt, but Amanda wore my Star Trek shirt, girlfriend of the podcast. Amanda wore my Star Trek shirt the other day that says what happens on the holodeck stays on the holodeck, so I couldn't wear that.
So relevant to these episodes, by the way.
finally relevant. And then my other one, I could have worn it. It's got Data and Spot on it.
Oh yeah,
Data's poem to Spot in the background. Maybe next time. Instead, I'm wearing this new, early birthday present from Amanda, the Guilds of Ravnica, Magic the Gathering, on a shirt. So it's a reference sheet on a shirt.
That's so
fun.
cool. I love it, dude.
And it's got the long sleeves. Oh, I forgot to show you. The sleeves have the cards on them.
That's kind of sick.
Yeah.
It's very sick.
Guilds of Magic. Good. I've been keeping my armies warm today with this bad
thing. Sure. I wore a long sleeve shirt today, but I was moving around a lot, so sorry, life things. So I was like sweating a lot, and I like sexually kind of like threw it off. I was like, oh man, it was whole thing. But no, I'm not wearing it now. Just short sleeve. I got this for Secret Santa or Secret Sylvanas if you're a World of Warcraft fan. My WoW guild and I.
That's nice.
We do a little gift exchange over here. Yeah. So going well, as you can tell if you're watching on video. I'm in a new space. Welcome. And you can tell by the audio, it's going to be a little echoey this week, and I apologize in advance. This room has not been sound treated yet. It will have fun paintings behind my camera, probably next week. Other than that, move went super smooth. Moving is tiring. Everybody involved was so tired after 6 hours of moving huge things.
I think it's the worst thing. No, I think packing is the worst thing. I think moving is the second worst thing.
They're definitely different kinds of bad.
Like if we're just talking about a word, a single verb, maybe waiting.
Waiting is the worst thing? Okay. I like waiting. I like waiting in lines. My mom hates it. She's always like so impatient about lines.
You like queuing?
I kind of like queuing, especially like the anticipation of the thing, like a steady queue. I appreciate a good wait. And I hope that people appreciated the wait between the last episode of TrekChatz and this one, because it's been a while. I'm not going to say the bit. It's been a while since we've done TrekChatz. Simple as that. Simple as. If you don't know, we're watching through. Good. If you don't know, we're watching Star Trek for the first time. We're in the middle of Deep Space Nine, and we watched season 3, part 1, the first 13 episodes of DS9 season 3. I want to start by asking you, what was your experience like watching this time? How did you enjoy season 3, part
1? It was nice. This is a good show. that's right. My initial take. Amanda's really enjoying it, so we watched almost all the episodes together. I had to do the last few by myself earlier today to be timely for the recording. But even the ones that aren't very good, it's fun to be like, these are my pals, and Quark, what the heck are you doing? And I don't know that this stretch was like a blow me away kind of stretch of episodes. There are some weak ones and some slow ones, but there are also some like sleeper hits in here that are personal favorites.
Yeah.
So it was an interesting bunch. What about you? What was your
I'm
experience?
gonna tease you and ask you to vamp, please, for about a minute.
Oh no.
No, I'm so
Okay.
sorry. We can cut this if we need to.
No, I'll figure out how to vamp. Um, okay, everybody. So let me give you my quick vamp on first half season 3 of DS9. I want to readjust, the running character King of the Hill situation. Who's the best character right now? Who's the worst? Unfortunately, Nog, who was top of the heap in season 1, part way through season 2, we got very little Nog content, and we only got him in one episode where there's a bit of a character assassination of my young friend Nog. So he's dropped a few ranks. I would say top character in Deep Space Nine right now has got to be ooh it's gotta be like that guy, the Cardassian guy who was like uh Kira's dad, Cardassian. He's definitely number one. Okay, number two is gonna have to be and that's the whole list. So that's pretty much that. Other Deep Space Nine thoughts. I don't want to do other Deep Space Nine thoughts. Here, let me entertain you. Sporkle quiz. Deep Space Nine. This is what happens when I'm left alone with my thoughts. All the trivia games. 15-second Bled Star Trek series. No, that's no good. Star Trek periodic table. Also no good. Deep Space Nine characters. I think this is just pictures. Yep, sure is.
I'm back.
Hey, welcome back.
Awesome thing about this place is the balcony is so low that I can be handed things from the balcony. I don't have to go outside.
That's very fun. I like that.
What'd you talk about with the folks?
I panicked.
Oh no. Do you need me to cut any of
I
that?
panicked. You should decide for yourself.
Roger that. You were asking me what I thought about the season.
Yeah.
This was a fun experience for me. So I watched only the finale from this new place once I got the internet set up today. I feel like my watch was pretty well paced most of the time, but I don't know. I wasn't like thrilled by these episodes like I wanted to be. I think I just have been holding episodes to the standard of duet for so long, and you'll notice there's a shift in my notes where I was like, I'm giving everything B's, and I need to hold the show to a higher standard because I keep being told best Trek show, best Trek show. These need to start being C's. I need to like level up my standards. Once I did that, I got a couple of C's in there, and I was like, these just aren't what I want out of the show, like at all, in the slightest, and they're not working for me. I still didn't give out any D's. I felt really close with one or two episodes that I was gonna give D's to, but like,
Yeah.
even the two-parter, past tense, I thought was good, but I wanted to be incredible, and I was like, I think our conversation will be awesome. But I was like, that was supposed to be the watermark. Everyone says, oh my God, past tense, you know? Bell riots. Bell riots just happened 2 months ago. We just had them August 2024.
And the world is so different now.
Completely. So. We just missed having a TrekChatz during the Bell riots, but yeah, that did not pan out perfectly. It's okay. But I really want to talk about it. I think these will be at the very, very, very least really fun discussions.
Yeah, I mean, I think just generally this patch of episodes send a bit of a mixed message as a chunk of television because this show, obviously we compare it to Babylon 5, and of course we compare it to Next Generation because it's the Star Trek show that came on after it. And this half of the season feels like it can't really decide which of those two things it wants to be, because on the one hand we start the season with, oh my God, the Dominion and the Jem'Hadar, and they're coming. They're gonna totally mess with Deep Space Nine. Everything's different, and we're all scared. And then by episode 6, it's like, oh, but let's just keep doing the fun
But
stuff that
Jake
we were
has a
doing before.
girlfriend.
Yeah, let's go to Quarks and we're all here hanging out and it's fine. Like it just feels like we're told that these events from the end of season 2 and the beginning of season 3 are supposed to have weight and bearing, and they do to an extent on the way that characters talk to each other or what they talk to each other
Mm-hmm.
about.
Mm-hmm.
But fundamentally, you could grab a random episode from this stretch and a random episode from season 2, and it might be hard to distinguish which season they're from, which is not something that would happen on Babylon 5 for the most part. I mean, there are obviously self-contained episodes in Babylon 5, but like once you start having a scary alien group that is doing fights with you in Babylon 5, like you're done. It's over for you.
You
And
cross that
that's
line, the
really
show
tough.
doesn't come back to being this again.
Right. And then on the other side of it, they're also just tossing in like, I don't know, now we have the Defiant, so now we can just do TNG episodes full stop. Like now we can get in the ship and go to a planet and be like, hey, what did the makeup department do for you, and what's your thing? And it's like, okay, I this is not why I'm here. Some of those are kind of interesting. I don't think those are all stinkers or clunkers,
Yeah.
but we're doing two-parters in history and we're going to planets. It's like, no, I watched TNG. It's over now. You're the main Star Trek show, and I want you to do your own thing. Um, which is another thing. This is the first season that Deep Space Nine is existing solely on its own in the TV Star Trek TV landscape. So maybe they felt a pressure to like do more TNG esque things to make sure that that
Fill
audience
the hole.
transferred.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, but there's definitely a bit of an identity crisis here, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I'm so glad you said that. And I believe it's 313 actually is the first episode that airs while Voyager is airing. So this chunk
Oh,
is...
they really start Voyager that soon, huh?
Yeah, apparently. I think if I read that on Wikipedia is where I saw that. Wikipedia. Yeah, Voyager was starting.
Yeah, Voyager
So
starts January 1995. Yep.
this chunk is the only chunk ever where only DS9 is airing.
Interesting.
And I agree. It does feel like the Defiant is such a specific callback to TNG and the idea of having away team episodes that like we've seen before, guys. You're all are doing episodes we've seen before, and sometimes better and sometimes not better. And what I loved about DS9, what initially really enamored me to it, was the unique politics and the political situation of the station itself. Not we go to a planet and there's weird like we'll get to that episode, the Dax dimension hopping alien people. But I was like, this is a mid season 2 TNG episode, guys. Like you know you're doing that. But you make a good point that if that show's no longer airing, then there might be some pressure from either the network or somebody to be like, we need off-ship episodes. We need that kind of thing.
Yeah, or maybe there's even like, as a writer, maybe you're excited by that. Like, oh, now we are the Star Trek show,
right?
So now we get to do all of it. And maybe it's, I think I'm negatively framing it. Maybe it's coming from a more excited place, or maybe some writers, I would imagine some writers came over from TNG to Deep Space Nine, and brought the things that they found interesting and wanted to do them here. And it's the results are mixed, which we'll talk about. So it was still really fun to watch this chunk, but it's funny. I don't know why I thought this, but I thought season 3 was like supposed to be where it got good.
Yeah,
but
me too.
Friend of the show, Arthur, texted me today, and Amanda talked to somebody on this kickball team that she's on, who said the same sentiment, that like season 4 is where it really starts to cook. And it's like, wait, what?
Damn
okay,
it. See you in 2 months.
Yeah, I'm in. I'm gonna watch the whole thing. That's fine. I'm enjoying myself.
Yeah.
But like all the pieces are here. We've found the bad aliens and they're teaming up and they're trying to get all up in our space and get us turned against each other. And then when are we going to do that? I don't know. So anyway, we should talk about the episodes.
Yeah, I think something briefly I want to do that we used to do in the TNG part of this podcast that we've kind of like backed away from is just like analyzing where the board is at as of this chunk of episodes. So like not to go down every single character, but in general, we've got the introduction of the Dominion and the Jem'Hadar and the implications of that for Deep Space Nine politically and for our crew. We have the dream world, but not yet real promotion of Sisko to captain. We've got the increased emphasis on Jake and Nog's dating lives as young adults who argue with each other, fight with each other, and fall in love with girls. Quark and Odo continue to be madly in love with each other and sometimes know how to say it, but sometimes don't. Garak and Bashir. Garak gets plenty more to do this season and is a lot of fun, and the two of them are always a delight to see. He kind of like goes to the back burner though in the second half of these eps that I was like, oh wait, I need Garak. We had so much Garak and then we had no Garak.
Yeah, they use Garak a lot, which was fun.
I just wish they spread that out more.
Right.
Kira's relationship with Vedic Bareil deepens before it bottoms out because he passes away at the end of these episodes. Dax's backstory is fleshed out a little more. We learn a little more about Curzon. We learn more about her past selves, the previous people that Dax was hosted inside of, and she falls in love a whole bunch. And Keiko and O'Brien have a brief separation where Keiko is not brief, I guess, on leave doing botany duty because the school was destroyed, and O'Brien wants her to be, follow her dream of being a botanist. She takes their daughter, takes Molly, and they go on this botany expedition that O'Brien feels mixed about, and we explore that later. And so that's basically like O'Brien and Keiko, and I think that's everyone. And I guess Bashir and Garak do stuff. Bashir is a doctor, and his role has been deepened a little bit.
Yeah, he's a lot more. Bashir in this season is a lot more like, God damn it, I'm a doctor, and he does that a lot.
He's very Bones,
kind of a more classic, Star Trek doctor. Something I picked up on as a trend in what you were describing is, maybe this is just my feeling of it, but this season feels more preoccupied with romance and positioning the main crew in romantic situations. We see Dax having romantic subplots, I think more than one, at least one that I can think of.
Well, there's the love episode.
There's the major love episode, which wasn't really a thing before. We care a lot about the Kira Bareil romance, but we also do another little Kira side romance episode, and we're hinting throughout that Odo has romantic feelings for her, and that's a thing that we should care about too. Which that also kind of feels like bleed from TNG. That feels like a very TNG thing, that we're preoccupied with, well, who's in love with whom, or this is the episode where Riker has a new deep love of his life, and then they tragically part ways. I don't think that DS9 was really doing that quite as much before, so it's interesting to see them do it here, and again, I think it meets mixed success.
I didn't mention Odo. I forgot to mention Odo. But Odo's got one of the most important arcs of the season, learning about his people and learning that he doesn't have to be defined by them, and he can find happiness and love in other places. It's kind of his arc, which I liked quite a bit. I think that might be, at least in the parts that we get of it, one of my favorite character arcs this season, this chunk.
Yeah, I think the Odo stuff is really strong, and I think Renee Auberjonois sells it super well, starting with the two-parter that kicks off the season, so we can get into that. So we like to go through these episodes and describe them, what we think about them, put them on a tier list, the classic internet thing. Tiers are S, A, B, C, D, F, or bad but actually good. Those are the options. Last season was mostly A's and B's with some scant S's and some scant C's. Really nothing worse than that. We haven't seen a D or lower since season 1. Maybe we'll see one this season. Who knows?
We still haven't seen a D. That's true. Sorry.
Bruh. The season starts with a two-parter, so we're doing that. Not my favorite thing, but it's fine. The Search, parts 1 and 2. The general gist of the search is we're going to the Gamma Quadrant and we're searching and we find some changelings. Whoa! At the end of the first episode, and then part 2 is all about that. So before
Yes.
we talk about the changelings, part 1, Alan, what were your thoughts on the search and some things that you noticed about it?
Huge. We're cashing checks. You know, the narrative concept of cashing
Mm-hmm.
checks. You wrote checks last season with the Dominion, and now we're showing
Mm-hmm.
them, and we're talking about the founders, and it's kind of hard to appreciate stuff like this when you've seen it copied so many times. I think these two
Mm-hmm.
episodes just are very guilty of being copied, and as a result, almost feeling generic. The idea
Mm-hmm.
that, spoilers, the changelings are the founders of the Dominion, of the Jem'Hadar at least, is a concept I've seen in like the progenitor race concept is in like every video game from like
Right.
2012, 20,
Right.
etc.
Right.
Having Odo be one of them though is a cool twist on it, and is a brilliant, almost poetic sort of advancement of his storyline, his
Mm-hmm.
realization of that, and how it informs him for the rest of the season. I think this episode does a great job of setting a huge table uh, of full food that the rest of the season, like we were saying, doesn't necessarily eat all of or go for all of, but it sets a great
Mm-hmm.
table. It sets a very fun table. The Dominion are here. How are we going
Mm-hmm.
to deal with them politically? How does Starfleet handle them politically? That stuff's all great. I think the action of the episode is totally okay. But I did point out to you over text that, like, especially at the end of the search part 1, I was like, this feels like Odo's stuff feels like when you have a loyalty mission in a Bioware game and the character is telling you, you gotta do this now or else I'm gonna be blocked out. You'll get a bad ending. Odo's like, Kira, you gotta
Right.
go with me. We gotta check out the
Cartho
changes.
Nazi's like, please go
My
meet my
son,
son on Korriban, please.
please.
It's actually a very interesting quest, I promise.
It
Yeah,
is actually.
that's real. That's real.
So that was my take on it. What about you?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you're saying there about the table setting. Part of what's fun about this show saying there's a whole nother quadrant of space is that the rules in that quadrant can be totally different. We don't need to worry
Yeah.
about the Romulans and the Klingons and the Vulcans and their social political interconnectedness. We can construct a brand new system out there in that quadrant and then see what happens when
Yeah.
whatever has settled there comes into conflict with what we have here. So we have the Dominion, and there it seems a kind of confederation of these like especially powerful alien species, and they are coming for us. And what are we going to do about that? And I
Right.
like the imminent threat of that, um, and I like where we get with the changelings explaining their rationale for why they became the founders of the Dominion. Um, it grew out of a kind of like self protection instinct that became a conquering,
Malicious. Yeah.
right, a malicious conquering force or project on their part. So, like, cool, that makes sense. I want to see that.
Mm-hmm.
And later in the season, they get into okay, here's the Jem'Hadar and how they play into it. They don't really touch on these the other ones that are like psychic or whatever, who we ended the season with and started the
Or
season with.
people.
Yeah, and who wanted us to believe that they were the founders.
Yeah.
So a lot of this first episode is spent with us thinking maybe they're in charge, or the second episode actually I think is
Yeah.
more that. Um, this first episode is really just a lot of like, we should really go to the Gamma Quadrant. Let's go.
Yeah.
And here's how we're gonna go. It's like, okay, go. Um, but there's some cool world building. I like one kind of random side thing that I liked about the Defiant, which is introduced here
Mm-hmm.
more fully, is Cisco explains how it was a prototype for what would have become an anti-Borg fleet.
Yeah.
Um,
Interesting,
and it's
huh?
like, whoa, that's awesome that Starfleet made this extremely dangerous, powerful ship. And it's just kind of sitting around because the Borg stopped being a problem.
Yeah. Thanks you.
Cool. Yeah. Um, so I thought that that was an awesome little bit of explanation of where the Defiant comes from, how it weaves into Cisco's backstory and the story that launched Deep Space Nine and got us here. Um, I end up not liking how they used the Defiant, but I thought that was cool. And like the Romulans are here and they're
Yeah.
helping out by putting a cloaking device on it. It's like,
Yeah.
whoa,
I'm sure
we're
that'll
teaming
go
up with the
great.
Romulans. Yeah. Yeah, so a lot of interesting world building stuff in what's otherwise kind of a slow episode, I think.
Yes, I think those you got my 2 notes. Number 1, Romulan cloaking tech. What could possibly go wrong? Spoilers for literally later this chunk of episodes. Something goes wrong. And then I loved all the changeling stuff. I just love learning about Starfleet. You know, they're so evil. We just built a warship just in case, and now we have it, and it's fully functional. And don't use it. Hopefully, just kidding. We're gonna use it every single episode. So yeah, narratively and having a set that is like the Defiant, it's like, okay, good, this is cool. You have a new set. You have a new thing that takes us places. DS9 was not to me a show up going places or fighting people or arming the phasers. It just wasn't that. So it's a weird thing for me. But I think this episode still sits at a comfortable B. It's fine. Yeah. It does introduce good things.
Yeah. I have a couple random little notes here.
Yeah.
From this one. I want to get back to the idea that you were saying of like Deep Space Nine isn't supposed to go places. The Defiant, it feels like the Defiant should be more of a thing that bites us in the ass later. Yes. Like we shouldn't be exploring. So we'll talk about that more when they casually are like, well, we might as well take the Defiant exploring. Anyway, when they introduce Sub-Commander Tarul from the Romulan Empire and Cisco's trying to introduce everybody to her, she says, "Thank you, but I know their names, and I'm not here to make friends," which is amazing. So pretty good.
She knows who she fits in the story.
There's a wonderful scene where Cisco is convincing Quark to come with them. I don't really remember why he needs Quark to be there, except Quark is a main character on the show. But Quark says, "You're joking with me, aren't you? Having a little fun with Quark." And then he does this whole thing where he's like, well, actually, the Grand Nagus said that you should go. You started this whole wine business in the Gamma Quadrant or whatever.
Continuity.
And here's the Grand Nagus' staff. Give it a little kiss. That's pretty fun. Mm-hmm. And what a tender kiss from Quark. Almost a romantic close-up kiss with the Grand Nagus staff. Couldn't you just tell the replicator to make you one?
I sort of thought that that's what they did at first. I mean, maybe
kind of a fun gag.
I wonder if the replicator has hard locks on certain things. Like, this is a unique. Don't recreate this.
Yeah, I wonder about that too. Yeah.
Can you replicate me $6 million with different serial
numbers? Right. Yeah, I guess but they don't ever use physical current. I guess they use latinum.
Yeah.
Latinum.
Gold press latinum.
Latinum. But then why couldn't you just make latinum? You can make a burger.
There has to be rules against that.
There have to be. We've never talked about the replicators, though.
The replicator does make a turret in a later episode.
Yeah, yes. Quark has an amazing jacket.
Yeah. Frankie fashion on point this season.
Yeah. There's a moment where he and Odo are sharing a space, and Odo has to turn into goop, but his bucket's not there. He doesn't want Quark to watch him. I think this scene is so good.
Yes.
And Renee yells and growls at Quark, like, "Don't fucking look at me." Yeah. It's so good. I also laughed because there's a line where he says, "I've been holding this shape for 16 hours, but my brain completed it," to him saying, "I've been holding this shit for 16 hours."
It does kind of sound like that.
Yeah. And then my last random note, Odo is like, "Kira, we gotta go to this part of the Gamma Quadrant. I'm being drawn there."
Yeah.
She's like, "No, we can't." He says, "Are you the ship's counselor now?" She says, "No, I'm your friend." And then my dumb note here is he's like, "Well, it's where I'm supposed to be." And then for some reason I'm like, oh, he's a big fan of supposed to be, I guess. He's got to eat the booty like groceries.
Oh my gosh.
Whatever.
I saw that note and didn't even get it until you said it out loud.
I didn't get it either. I had to remind myself, like, what even was
What's my brain reaching for?
So this is a B, right? The search part 1.
Yeah, for sure, for sure, for sure.
All right. Part 2 it is when it gets a little more interesting because we got the changelings and we're meeting them and learning about their society. What do you think about all this?
Fun, fun. Once you
Yeah.
said in your notes that they're doing a human reaction, I was like, okay, I like this. Flatly, this has tapped into a thing that's been in my brain since 2015. We watched that in 2015. I'm satisfied with it. I like what we're doing. I'm not surprised by it. It's actually pretty obvious if you know like narrative, like obviously Garrick dying. You're like, that seems really weird. Just the quickness with Starfleet's like, sorry, we're working with them now. You guys actually are irrelevant to it. Like, we're the main character of the show, and the background is telling us we're not important. This is not true. I quite enjoyed this. We had Garrick Bashir stuff. We had a big twist. We got tons of good Odo moments. I think Renee crushing it here. Even a little bit of good Kira stuff, like you were saying, that sort of budding hints of a relationship between her and Odo. I really like this one more than the first one.
Yeah. Yeah, because so the A plot is or I guess we could debate about which is A and which is B. I think the A plot, you could say, is Odo and Kira on the changeling planet, meeting them, learning about their society and their beliefs. And like you're describing the B plot, they hold it very close to the vest, but we're meant to think that Starfleet has aligned itself with the Cardassians and the Dominion.
Yes.
Which is like, no, thank you. I don't think so. And yeah, like you're saying, I picked up on it. Obviously, it's weird from the jump, but most of the way through, it's like, okay, they're in a simulation. Especially when they start introducing the door. There's a door here. Why is there a door here? What's behind the door? It's like, oh, everybody else must be behind the door. That's what's happening. If you don't know what we're talking about human reaction. By the way, it's a Farscape episode. It's like the first amazing episode of Farscape, season 1, episode 10. Highly recommend it. It's got a similar premise. Sorry to spoil it, but a similar premise of there is a progenitor race of aliens who are trying to see how humans would react to a situation.
I think the specifics, though, we don't have to go into are what differentiate them and are brilliant about that episode. But yeah, same, like, we're testing you. You kind of failed. We have some adjustments that we need to do.
Yeah, and I think if I could soapbox for like 45 seconds about those differences, and full spoiler warning here, I think what's beautiful about a human reaction that doesn't work for me here is in a human reaction, the progenitor alien race are benevolent. They want to reveal themselves to humanity. They want to welcome humanity into the fold of spacefaring races. They want to see if they can find a world that can be a sanctuary for them.
Yeah, right.
And they learn that human beings are too scared of what they don't understand for these aliens to go live on Earth.
Too racist, too shitty, too bigoted.
Right. It's this heartbreaking thing where the protagonist, John Crichton, is like, oh my God, this is terrible. I've like learned to really love my alien shipmates, and I want to believe in the best in humanity. And I also know that this would happen, that we Earthlings would not be able to be cool about it. And that's really sad to me. Whereas this, it's like not really about anything more than the Dominion trying to figure out how hard would it be for us to like conquer you real quick.
How would it go?
It'd be kind of annoying for us. Okay, got it. All right, cool. Well, thanks for letting us go.
We'll adjust the plan.
Yeah. So it's like you don't really learn much about the main cast in this or how they feel about that. You just sort of learn about what a Dominion invasion could look like, which involves turning the various factions against each other. Kind of a cool preview of what's to come, perhaps, but there's not really a soul to it in the same way. So I don't know. Once I figured out what was going on, it's kind of like, oh, okay, sure, that's kind of clever, I guess. But yeah, it didn't blow me away. I think I like the Odo stuff a lot more.
Yes, I was going to say that. Episode. Odo gets to be an Animorph this episode.
He's encouraged to be.
Yeah, they're like, you can turn into a bird, whenever you want. He's like, really? Like a whole bird and fly around? They're like, dude, do it. See what happens. And he flies around.
Yeah,
He goes,
it's actually your homework, dude.
yeah, it's a quest. It's to unlock druid shapeshifting in World of Warcraft. You have to be a bird for an hour. And he comes back to Kira and he's like, being a bird is so fun. She's like, I can't relate, but good. I'm glad you're happy. Okay, Odo. I think I wrote, starting to think things are not as they seem, because why would they sacrifice their careers like this in season 3 of 7? That was me like metagaming this episode. Because I'm like, when Babylon 5 does something like that again, I'm not going to go into the details of how it happens. It's like the second to last season of the show, and it does make a big difference, but you feel like they've built up to it. This did not feel like it was built up to for very long. This is the second episode of season 3. We just introduced the Dominion, and now we're suddenly like, yeah, everyone on DS9 is defecting from, or all our crew is defecting from Starfleet, and DS9, the station, is controlled by the Dominion. Like, no, that's not what happens now.
Yeah. Too fast. Right.
Too furious.
Uh-huh.
Some other notes I have, again, shout outs to Renee, his voice catching in his throat when he gets on the planet and says, I am home. I've been watching a lot more of The Leftovers lately, and that reminded me of Nora Durst in Certified saying, okay, when Matt tells her, oh my God, I won't make any specifics about why that scene's incredible, but watch The Leftovers is what I'm going to say. God. I love that the changelings call people like Kira solids. I like that we're all solids.
It's so stupid and funny.
Sci-fi slurs are sometimes fun. The concept of the Great Link is very interesting. Just like holy mission and goal that the changelings work towards.
Yeah, and also like a state of consciousness for them. It seems like when they goopify, they share consciousness. Almost like another Farscape reference, but Zahn could do that with people, I think.
Oh, right? Yeah.
Or, for the Evangelion fans out there, it's sort of like a human instrumentality project that they can just kind of click into and out of whenever they want. That's effectively what it is. Yeah.
The collective goop. You join the collective soup of society.
Yeah.
I loved Garrick to Cisco. Sorry, this is a quick one.
Mm-hmm.
When they're like, what's going on? Why is Starfleet being so weird? And Garrick's like, maybe our leaders are insane. They could be off the rocker. I don't know. Yeah. This is a simulation, probably. I just love the bluntness of that line.
Yeah. Garrick in this one is so fun. I love the scene where he and Cisco are like, well, this sucks. Boy, I sure wish somebody could do something about it. Maybe we should or not. I don't know. Them teaming up with Garrick is always a blast. The best part was when they get caught on their way out. You have the same line I do. This guy's probably like, stop right there. And Garrick's like, oh, you don't know the plan? And the guard guy's like, what plan? And Garrick's like, well, I pretend to be their friend, and then I shoot you. Boom.
Boom, dead. Garrick's the goat.
And then he's like, I don't know. I overheard that line once. I don't know how to do that.
He says that like 5 times this season. They're like, Garrick, why did you just say the hardest, coldest line I've ever heard in fiction? And he's like, I don't know. I was having some lady's pants and I heard some guy say it. Like, what is your life, Garrick?
Mm-hmm. The best misdirection he has is it's later in the season where he says something like that. And then he's like, Doctor, by the way, your pants are ready to be picked up whenever you want to get those. Pretty fun.
Yep.
And then of course they kill off Garrick, which should be proof, all the proof you need that this is not real. His dying line is, Doctor, I'm afraid I won't be able to have lunch with you today.
This is how it would go if this was like season 7. This is exactly what would happen. Is he'd have a couple of badass moments, and then he'd die heroically, and then he'd say something cute to Bashir. Questionably gay to Bashir, and you'd be like, but because it's, again, this is a fake out, you're just like, oh, R.I.P. Garrick? Question mark?
Right.
I think this is ultimately why we like Odo in this one so much, is because his stuff is all real. Being an outsider isn't so bad. It gives one a unique perspective. Is him trying to justify this tragedy that he's experienced of, I no longer support the actions and the methodology of my people that I've been looking for my entire life. I met them.
Yeah.
I got what I wanted. It's the narrative thing, the like fiction writing thing. You give your characters what they want, and it's not what they thought. It's different than they thought it would be.
Yeah. I think this is a great example of sometimes TV shows are afraid, I think, to do the thing that they are building up all the anticipation for, because then what's on the other side of the thing? Once we do it, now we have to figure out the consequences of it. And it's so much easier to say, uh-oh, are his people here? Nope. Guess he's got to keep
Wasn't there
looking. Let's
people?
keep
Yeah,
looking.
yeah,
So it's a bold choice, and I think kind of a sudden one, to introduce them at the beginning of the season and then immediately in the second episode say, and they're kind of the bad guys. I didn't expect them to do that, or I had spoiled for myself that the
yeah.
changelings were part of the Dominion. That was something I spoiled. I did not spoil that we would learn that at the beginning of season 3 of the show. That was much sooner than I anticipated knowing that information. And I really, really admire the show for taking that step and for shaking up what Odo's character and plot lines are about now. Because
Yeah.
now, you know, he doesn't have that like glimmer of hope anymore that he's going to find his home. But he does have this understanding that he is home already, and there are things that he can cultivate about his experience and his life as an outsider to two worlds
Yeah.
that can mean something to him, and that's pretty special. And there's something really, I think, special about the tragedy of, like, you know, he wasn't just lost or separated, he was sent away from his people. This was by their design. And there's something to that that's like really heartbreaking and infuriating for him and interesting to dig into. And the kind of irony of, like, they sent him away to learn about the world outside, and it changed who he would have become and how he thought about that world. I like that a lot.
Yeah, I think that is followed up brilliantly later in the episode where he has a Jem'Hadar's son. So I want to talk more about that theme.
Yes, 100%.
I think, any other notes?
No, that's it. It's hard to place this one. What did you rate it?
My initial rating was an S, just because I think I liked the twist. I don't think I spoiled it for myself.
Mm-hmm.
It's like maybe I knew it at some point and forgot, but when I saw it, I texted and I was like, dude, this is bananas that they're doing this. So, but I'm willing to bump down to an A just because it, like I said, this and most episodes this season didn't like light me up, and I wish it did more.
Yeah, I think there are episodes later in in this section that I like more. So an A feels right to me.
Place it.
You know, they did. So then we have episode 3. Oh, go ahead.
No, just they did this thing, TNG especially, where you have like a string of bad episodes, and you'd be like, is TNG even good? And then there'd be like the greatest episode you've ever seen. So sometimes they reverse it, and they do like good episodes and then stinkers. And I asked you, but you had been ahead of me at this point in our watching, and I was like, what's next? And you were like, Quark goes through a Coen Brothers movie. And I was like, do I want that? Am I excited? Tell us about House of Quark.
So, you know, before I say more about it, sounds like you didn't like it. And
it's fine.
My watch experience is Amanda and I watched it the third in a row this first night that we were watching episodes, and we got maybe 30 minutes into it, 25 minutes into it, and we were like, ugh, we'll finish this one tomorrow.
Yes.
And then we watched the rest of it the next morning, and I was like, this episode's pretty good. So I don't know. I don't know what happened there, but
it hits plenty of good beats, and I love seeing Klingons. It's like I'm not hard to please in that way.
Yeah. But essentially, the reason I compare it to a Coen Brothers movie is because you have this protagonist character who finds themselves in an unlikely situation where they're fucked. Like, oh no, this is bad. And now you have to deal with the ramifications of trying to solve the problem, but finding new problems in the course of following what you think the solutions are. And along the way, you meet like wacky individuals who have unusual worldviews and rules that they're putting you under, and you just try to use your wits and your skills and what you know how to do to survive your way through it. So that's what felt like Coen Brothersy to me. It essentially starts with Quark in his bar, and there's this Klingon who is asking for a free drink or a loan or something like that.
He's on
And
like his
then he
12th
gets
drink of the
mad at
night.
Quark.
He's like, I want another drink.
Yeah.
You're like, all right, you've been drinking all night, dude. You're on your 12th beverage. Him and his brother, Quark.
Yeah, he's like blackout drunk, barely able to stand up.
Yeah.
And he goes to attack Quark, ends up falling on his own dagger and dying.
Mm-hmm.
So then Quark is like, oh, well, this could be good for business, of course. So he and Rom try to drum up this story about how Quark fought the Klingon guy and defeated him in combat. And then essentially Quark finds himself in this really complicated interplay of, okay, this guy had a brother, but it actually wasn't his brother, and Klingon honor, and well, what about his wife and his house, and da 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 da. Yeah, and it goes a lot of places. So that's that part of the episode.
Kozak's ever expanding family of angrier and angrier Klingons is so funny to me, because it's like, okay, we got a brother of his, so that guy's problematic. Oh my god, he's also got his wife. She kind of likes Quark, but not in a romantic way, but maybe. And he has to fight somebody. There has to be bloodshed, but isn't this all a ploy? Oh, this might even all just be a ploy for Quark. What even is going on? It just like the episode kind of like falls in on itself. It's fun. It is funny, and I do love Quark. I'm not sick of him, mostly. It's just, again, I feel like I'm such a negative Nelly here. It didn't light me up. It didn't get me going, and I'm trying to hold the show to a higher standard.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Was great.
Yeah, I let me try to defend the plot a little bit, and you can agree or disagree with these defenses. I think Armin Shimmerman is at his best where Quark is doing his unscrupulous Ferengi things with good intentions. Like, he's trying to affect good in the world as a result of it. And I think Armin Shimmerman does a great job of playing that contrast between, ooh, I'm a scheming guy, but I want to do the right thing, and I hate it about myself, but I also cherish it about myself that I have values and scruples.
Yeah.
It's not fun when Quark is unquestionably doing the wrong thing. There's an episode later in the season where he, without a doubt, is doing fully the wrong thing and doesn't even bat an eye about it, and you're like, what the heck, Quark, what is wrong with you?
Yeah.
But in this episode, he is along for the ride. He's scared, everybody is intimidating him, and he's made to believe that like he has to pretend to be somebody he's not, or submit to the people around him, and he finds a way to use his skills and his values to find success ultimately. And you get a fun cast. Rom gets to be a sidekick in a plot. No other main character is in this plot at all. It's pretty much just Quark driving it, which I think is pretty fun as well. And it's a fun deconstruction of all this like Klingon honor code stuff, but kind of taking that apart in a way that there are a lot of episodes from TNG where Worf is at the center of those Klingon honor plots, and we're sort of meant to like find some respect for it, or at least think deeply and critically about it in a dramatic way. But I think this deconstructs it in a more tongue-in-cheek, humorous way that I enjoy.
And you make a good point there, by the way, that Quark has a moral code here, because I think it was last season that we had an episode where Quark was like wildly out of pocket, and it's like I can only believe in and engage with the Quark plotline stuff when he has some sort of code of honor. When he's just like a purely unscrupulous, and I know that like the Ferengi see a lack of scruples as a positive quality, but like you can leave that for Nog to be unabashedly bad. Corey's a main character who needs to have development and growth and change, and he can't just be pure evil forever. And he's not. In this episode, like you said, he's kind of got like people's best interest in mind, not just his own. Ultimately, he wants to survive. He's like scared of everyone, but even on the back foot, he still manages some good things. And I think you also mentioned a good thing about Klingons and how, I was at a Middle Eastern Culture Festival this past weekend, and on Saturday, and I was thinking a lot about how, like, when I grew up, my parents always talked about how, our culture is awesome, we love our culture, you should learn to love and respect it, and I do, and that worked, and also there's just a lot of people, especially in my parents' generation, who are like charlatans, like people who just like use the like auspices of culture and being culturally appropriate, or in line with your culture, to like do bad things. And the Ferengi do that sometimes, but also it's just cool seeing the Klingon kind of be like, we all screw each other over. We say we're all about honor, but this guy's trying to like embezzle this other family's money. Like, what are you talking about honor? No society works like that perfectly. And it's cool to see the Klingons kind of knock down a peg. It makes them very realistic.
Yeah, knocked down a peg and also like humanized a little bit more.
Yeah.
Like you're saying that there's more nuance and agency within that. It's not just like Klingons are robots that press button to do honorable thing. They are individuals living in a society who have individual goals, and they're going to act on them. And we see that play out in this plot. Yeah. And I think it fits with, Deep Space Nine. It's not by accident that most of the main cast are not human. It's what, Sisko and Bashir,
and O'Brien,
and O'Brien, and that's it. And everybody else is non-human, and in some way is both representing their species, but also contrasting with their species. And I think taking what worked about Worf in TNG and having many different versions and iterations of that. So this is also like not only DS9 doing that with Quark and his Ferengi-ness, but also doing it with Klingon society and looking at Klingon society in a more deconstructed DS9 sort of way. So I don't know. I ended up enjoying it. It takes a while to get off the ground, but once you get to the whole, oh, that wasn't really his brother, that was actually this guy who's been trying to ruin our house, and I'm his wife, and you need to pretend to marry me.
It loses me.
That's when it got me. That's what I love that.
Okay. Valid.
Yeah, so that's I think where we differ.
Part of it, and probably why our rating is gonna even out, is I actually really like the B plot of this one. This brief little peek into Keiko and O'Brien's life, and Keiko being like O'Brien comes to the household. He's like, hey, honey, it's been a really long day, and Corey's going through all this stuff, and he killed someone maybe, and she's like, I'm your partner, I love you, I don't have a job anymore. I teach 2 students. I teach Jake and Nog. Everyone else left at the end of last season. I'm basically not employed. I'm stressed about that. The career that I decided to make on this ship is not doing anything for me, literally. And that's when he's like, what can we do to make you happy? I'm just so invested in O'Brien and Keiko's relationship this season, and the ways that he caters to her, but also sees his own needs as a husband, and is like, I need to make sure my feelings are valid too. I feel like I see a lot of couples in my life in Keiko and O'Brien, for various reasons. I just think they're so believable, so realistic, and at the end of this one, this is Keiko saying, I'm gonna go on this mission with Molly. So important thing to note, like a key part of Molly's growing up life is gonna be without a dad for the short term. He's going to try to talk to them, but he's not physically there, and so is Keiko. And that's like just a really beautiful and sad thing happening in the corner of Quark's Coen Brothers adventure.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they do a great job with Keiko and O'Brien. There are like 2 episodes in this stretch where their relationship is a core part of the plot.
Yeah.
And like you're saying, a lesser show might have had this conflict between them end with them being like, and we got a divorce or
Correct.
whatever.
That's over. Yeah.
Because it's like, it's too complicated, it's too negative, too tense. So we're just gonna kind of get rid of that plot. But they have, real problems and have to arrive at messy compromise solutions to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Keiko's like, hey, I promised you that I'd stay here. And O'Brien says, I know, but you're depressed. Like you are, that's what's happening here. And we need to do something about that. So we're going to change the plan and change the promise and try something different, be separate for a little while. And that might be what we need. And yeah, I appreciate it that they chose to do that. I don't like that they are taking Keiko off the show effectively as like a recurring character at the pace that she was recurring.
Yeah.
But I guess it makes sense. This is also just one of those things, like I was saying, where at the beginning of the season, they're saying, oh, the Dominion, they changed everything. And then by the episode where Keiko comes back, the station's full of people. We're having a party. It's like they could have run a school again.
Yeah.
She could have stuck around for a couple of weeks and it would have been fine.
Yeah, I'm so excited to talk about that one, by the way. God, the festival.
Yeah. Oh my God. That episode.
Yeah. You ready to rate House of Quark?
Yeah, just a couple quick little notes on it. Sorry. The O'Brien's first attempt to make Keiko not depressed anymore is to cook her a big dinner and have sex with her. And he's like, I'm married to the most wonderful woman in the galaxy day, which is adorable.
Very cute.
She's like, what is that? He says it's an old Irish tradition. Amazing. I love that bit so much. Let's see. I think my favorite scene in the episode is when Quark goes into single combat with the guy who's trying to mess up the Klingon house. And the way he solves it is he's like, okay, then kill me. I'm an unarmed Ferengi. This is going to be the most dishonorable thing you've ever done. This is going to be embarrassing for you.
Yeah.
But you can do
it. Go ahead.
And Dagor's like, okay. And then the council's like, whoa, dude.
Do not.
You suck. What the heck? I thought that was great. And I love that at the end of the episode, it's just Rom and Quark in the bar. And Rom's like, tell me the story of how you were so cool. I love you, brother. You're the best. And Quark's like, nobody wants to hear that story. Rom's like, I do. I want to hear it. And Quark's like, I'm taking this out of your paycheck. And Rom's like, okay. Tell me the story, bro. Beautiful.
Very beautiful.
Beautiful stuff. So, I don't know. A B, I guess. An A is what I put. You probably put a B, right?
You know what? I'm gonna bump it up to an A for you because
thank you.
The episode starts on Gorn. Gorn, and then the drunk Klingon. So we start on Gorn, and that's why it gets an A. I love Gorn so much. I love how small of a role he plays, but how mighty a presence he carries. He's so good.
Mm-hmm.
What if there was a Cheers reference in our Star Trek show, and just he recurs every other episode? Perfect. No notes. Gorn. Yeah, he's perfect. Moving on, we have Equilibrium, which is an interesting episode. It's in my notes, I wrote a wonderful Dax story that flushes out Trill Society in some meaningful ways, as well as Dax herself. I thought this episode took a little bit of time to get going, but once it was cooking and we were learning about Torias Dax, I felt like I was watching an episode of like Avatar season 3, and they're talking about like avatars I haven't even thought about yet, like 8 avatars ago, and you're like, whoa, so interesting. And I know we've compared the Trill to the Avatar before, but just this idea that there's like not a host. Yeah, there's a host for Dax that has been like problematic, and maybe the ways that the Trill Society define problematic are in themselves problematic. What's going on there? Because we learn that this musician guy, it's not Torias, that's the fusion. Joran is he's like a musician. We meet his older brother. He's like, oh, he died 80 years ago. I loved him, but he had his problems. He was deemed psychologically unfit for a Trill, but they did give him one, which maybe suggests that the reasons the Trill exclude certain people from having a symbiont are BS. And maybe the reason they're doing that is to artificially limit it, because according to them, if everybody who wanted a host got one, or everybody who wanted a symbiont got one, then we'd have none left. So we just made up some concept of viability, but there's no such real thing as viability. It's just people who can do it. Like, it's actually a lower requirement than we thought. And
right.
Dax having to realize that and be like, I am a part of that society, huh? Interesting. Okay, let's learn about that and move on.
Yeah.
And when she does that final sequence where she hugs Joran, the memory of Joran inside of her mind, and accepts that we've had a block on him because we don't want this to get out, but we've removed a block, and I'm accepting that there's a flawed individual inside my consciousness. I embrace him, physically embrace him with love and affection. I thought that was beautiful.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah, I'm sick of hearing about Curzon. Stop talking about Curzon.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Old man,
carousing guy, everybody, all the old boys in Starfleet love him. I don't care.
Yeah.
I want more Dax stuff that's about, 3 hosts ago, there was this person who was a scientist of this particular thing. Or like, here's a random skill that I know from, like, if you're going to do the I'm a host with 8 past lifetimes or whatever, give me more Dax stories like this one, where we examine what that means, what that looks like. I thought this first scene was such a great way of establishing some mystery, where Dax is playing the piano and she's like,
why do I know this song?
I shouldn't know how to do this. I've never been a musician before. That's such a brilliant way to be like, what's happening here?
Did you catch that coming back later, by the way, when she's embracing the guy inside of her and it plays the leitmotif of the piano music?
Oh, that's good.
It's really beautiful.
That's good. That's a nice touch.
Yeah.
And like you were saying, the stuff that comes to light about Trill's society here, where they say, I think they say something like, well, actually probably half of all the Trill.
It's not 1,000, it's half. You're like, that's a big difference, guys.
Fascinating fact, because then what do we make of that? What do we do with that? I guess it is in the interest of the stability of the society, but then, just so what would you do in that situation? Should we allow the government to be making these evaluations of people's merit? And I don't know. It's just a really interesting thing that we don't see Dax reckon with.
Yeah.
And I want to, especially as someone who, she was in the program, kicked out of the program, and then let back into it. So she has this unique perspective of somebody who, in theory, it shouldn't have worked, but it did. And she's kind of on that borderline, or understands the experience of people who are being artificially kept from having a symbiont. So I don't know if they're going to address that or not, but much like what happens with Odo earlier in the season, we get this revelation about kind of a darker, seedier aspect of the home society that I want to see our protagonist reckon with, and I think is really interesting.
I think it brings up another theme of the season, by the way, that when you find out that the people you believe in, or the society or the systems that you put a lot of stake in, are founded on corrupt ideas or evil or things you don't agree with, what do you do from there? How do you reconcile that? Like, what do you do next? And I think Dax handles that. I think Odo handles that. I think even Sisko handles that, and Bashir, later on in past
tense. I think you could argue that. Yeah.
So I think that's another theme we're picking up on here.
Yeah.
I have a couple notes on this one.
Okay.
The way that we find out that Dax is something's going on, she's having some intense responses to some sort of trauma she doesn't recognize. And the way it manifests is she's having these dreams of people in masks coming up to her and grabbing her. Masks, people with masks in your dreams is such a common, you're having an identity crisis thing. It's like a Freud 101, basically. But
yeah.
It's still really cool. It's a great effect here. I do wish they would stop because they always like do something weird, and then Bashir analyzes the person and says, "Oh, it's this," and they have to make up some sci-fi concept for why it's happening. And he says, "Your isoboromine levels are very low," and like they say the word isoboromine about 17 times in this episode, to where I was like, it stops meaning. Like I watched one of the episodes this season with my sister and my mom. They like had it on while they were in the room, and they were just every time one of the like jargon words came up, I like winced a little bit because I was like, "You're losing normal people. I know why you do this, and I like it, but normal people read that and they're like, should I know what that is?" And it's like, no, it's nothing. You got to learn the difference between when Bashir says isoboromine, that just means like you have bad juice. You're running out of good juice, basically. That's all it is. That's all it really is. Speaking of juice, the symbiote swimming pool where all the symbionts like swim around.
Cool set. Fun set.
Very cool set. Cloudy, milky white water. I feel like it would smell terrible, but it would feel so good to be in.
Yeah.
That's all. I just think it would have the worst smell ever.
It might zap you.
Yeah, especially if I'm not a candidate. It might dead or something, but I would do it anyways. I would do it. That's my main stuff. I like the doctor at the end, Ren Hall, who's like explaining all the stuff that we learn. And that final scene where Dax hugs the guy is actually very good and beautiful. What you got?
Yeah, the I agree that the imagery of like the nightmare mask people is a little silly. It looked a little bit like an Amadeus reference.
Yeah.
Not intentionally, but like I don't know. Works better in that movie. I love also in that first scene when Cisco's cooking for everybody. That's why they're all gathered together, and just the quaintness and specialness of knowing how to cook in the world of Star Trek. Everybody's kind of treating it like how do you know how to do this, or where'd you learn how to do this?
Whoa,
or
that's cool.
Couldn't you just have the replicator do it? But it's just not the same. Cisco's making beets and he's like, you haven't had my beets. My beets are too good. And him teaching Odo how to stir a pot.
Yeah.
Renee Auberjonois does this amazing physical comedy thing where he's moving the pot instead of the spoon or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Looks so unnatural. And Kira says to Odo, she's like, "Oh, I just think you look so cute."
Yeah. It's there.
It's great. It's great. Very tender, very good. Love that
my
scene
mom
a lot.
My mom likes to bring up this childhood memory of me a lot, where I'm reading a big book and I'm turning the pages of the book, but every time I turn a page, I lick the other finger. So I'll you need to like lick right finger, turn page with left hand kind of thing, which makes no sense, but is like a really good encapsulation of my brain, I think.
That's really funny. I really like the guy who's in charge of the symbiont pit.
Yeah,
and
a little freak. He's a freak.
Yeah. He's like, he talks to them and he's mad at them all the time.
Yeah.
Bashir is like, "Can I ask what you're doing?" He says yes.
Yeah.
And then Bashir says, "What are you doing?"
What are you doing? That weight is so good.
Yeah, it's great.
Okay, what are you doing?
Yeah, tell me more. So I don't know. This is a fun one. I think the specifics of who the past life was and the mystery is like not that interesting, but the larger stuff about Trill society and all that's pretty cool. So this is like on the border of a B, A for me. I'm not sure.
I gave it an A. I think the emotions and Terry Farrell. This might be the best Dax episode. So, like Dax centric.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. Yeah,
we can keep debating that, but I think that's the case. So the next episode is where I start getting really picky with my ratings, and I'm like, I can't just keep giving everything good rates. So my ratings will start to drop here. This is 305 Second Skin, which is basically a tried and true Star Trek / sci-fi TV show plotline. I wake up, I have a different face. In this case, Kira is being told that she was seen at a Cardassian prison camp. She's like, I don't remember being there. And then in researching that, she wakes up after being kidnapped by Cardassians and wakes up as a Cardassian. And she says, wait a minute, I hate these people. And this guy is like, you're my daughter. Nice to meet you again. It's been a while. Good to see you, daughter. Here's your name. Here's your identity. And I'm like, this is a ploy, but this is the thing they do with DS9 a lot, where it's like, well, obviously this is fake, but the why is what I'm not sure of yet, or the how.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What it turns out, and this one's a little bit complicated, is
Yeah. Right.
they're trying to catch the dad, who's actually a political dissident from the Cardassian society, by doing
Mm-hmm.
all of this so that he reveals some secrets. But then he escapes and gets political sanctuary, says sorry to Kira, and says he'll keep looking for his real daughter and like surgically revert her to her Bajoran state.
Right.
That's the short and long of it.
Yeah. So because there actually was a Cardassian woman who was made to look like Kira Nerys during the occupation. That really did happen.
Yes.
It's just that Kira is not her.
Yeah.
Kira is herself. Which
You got me.
is
You didn't get the girl that looks like
strange.
me. You got me.
Right.
And they think that they got the person who looks like her.
But they know, the Obsidian Order knows that they didn't get the original. What was her name? The original Cardassian person's name?
I thought I had it in my notes, but I'm not seeing it now. Like
Yeah,
Ileana or something?
Yeah, I think that's right, Ileana.
Okay.
They know that they didn't bring Ileana back. I thought at first what was going on was like they thought that they had Ileana and brought her back, but they didn't realize that they actually executed the real Ileana in a labor camp, thinking that she was a Bajoran.
Right.
That's what I thought was happening, but instead it was just like kind of Cardassian 3D chess that was kind of amusing, but
Yeah.
a little too much of that. And yeah, also like, didn't we do a plot like this with Deanna Troy in TNG?
Yeah.
And
She
this
was a
also
Romulan?
felt
Yeah.
right where she was a Romulan, and then this felt a little reminiscent even of the episode immediately prior, where it's like, oh, there's a secret part of your life you don't know about. Obviously, it ends up being very different, but it just is kind of rehashing previous Star Trek stuff in a way that
Right.
is a little distracting, I think.
Yeah, I think like Garrick rescuing her is what saves this one for me. Coming through and being cool. Him and Bashir obviously flirting some more. And the guy being like, I'm actually going to get to go free. I have to be on the lam now, but I'll let you know if I ever find my daughter. And thank you again. You're the closest thing I have to family. And she finds compassion for a Cardassian. So that's why, just jumping ahead, that's why I gave it a B, as I was like, and there's like hints at some cool stuff, but mostly it's just like a good Garrick episode, a decent Kira episode, and it's got a cool ending. But that's basically it. It's not an episode I'm going to think about too much. Yeah. Because it's been done before.
Yeah, I think I agree. Her connection with the dad guy is really sweet. And I like the way that they end the episode where she's like, oh, your daughter would be proud of you.
Yeah.
And the sadness on his part of, oh, well, she would have gone along with them probably. Or the medicine would have worked or whatever.
Yeah.
I think what I wanted is I wanted this to fuck with Kira's head more.
Yeah.
She maintains confidence that she is herself for almost the whole thing. Maybe she searches out it a little bit when she sees the video that Ileana recorded for herself. But like psychologically, there have been studies on the fact that memories can be implanted and you can be convinced of a memory that you never had. So I think it would have been more interesting to me if Kira started to believe it more, and kind of lost herself in it more. We have the kind of like Twin Peaks mirror smash moment, which is a little bit of that, but I think I wanted more psychological horror from this one than what we got.
It's such a severe. I get it. Because we have the same brain. I totally got how you got there. But for people who haven't watched Twin Peaks or who have are like, what? Yeah, there's a lot going on in that comparison. But I agree.
Yeah.
So I think this is a high B for me.
Right? Yeah. That works for me.
You want to introduce the next one?
Yeah, so then we have one thing on the last one. I love Garrick insisting, like, if I'm going on this mission, if you guys are about to die, I'm gonna let you die, just so you know. And Cisco's like, that's the first true thing you've ever said to me. Sounds good.
Right.
Let's go. Uh, he at one point it's like, this is extortion, and Cisco says it is.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so that's fun. All right, episode 6, The Abandoned. It's called.
Mm-hmm.
There are a couple plots going on here. The main one is there's a baby on the ship that Quark finds in some, like, I don't know, cargo or something.
Yeah. He
And
buys
the baby,
cargo thinking it'll be just like parts he can sell, and then it's
Mhm.
actually baby on board. How I've adored that sign on my car. Yeah.
Window
Uh-huh.
pane. Um, and it turns out that the baby starts to rapidly age. We realize this is a Jem'Hadar person who Odo takes under his wing to try to. We learn that the Jem'Hadar are genetically engineered to be subservient to the founders. They are genetically engineered to be violent, and essentially be like kind of the perfect soldiers of the Dominion, is the idea.
Mm-hmm.
So this is an episode where Odo is trying to insist, like, he doesn't have to become that. He could be someone else or be something else, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to make that happen. And so the episode is Odo wrestling with that, and it's essentially, I guess, like a nature nurture thing, but it's really like a nurture nurture. It's
Yes.
like,
They nurture each other.
is it the really early nurture or the later nurture slash, like, your own agency and self nurturing that has a
Right.
bigger effect on who you are? And obviously Odo's doing a lot of projecting here because he's
Sees
trying to figure this
himself.
out for himself, and he wants to believe that he's choosing his own path of his own free will, that he's who he is now because he wants to be that, and his life is his to decide. And so it's painful for him to see, this Jem'Hadar person who, by the end of the episode, is essentially like, I don't want your life, old man. I want to go hang out with the other Jem'Hadar and be what I was biologically engineered to be. It's kind of sad. What did you think about this whole plot?
Promise me you won't get mad at me when I say this.
Okay, I promise.
This is tied with past tense for my favorite episode of this chunk. This is fantastic to me.
Okay,
Because it starts out and I'm so
talk to me
unhappy.
about it.
I'm like,
Yeah.
bruh, a rapidly aging child is the most generic bad TNG plot I've ever seen. I've seen this a billion, trillion,
We've done
zillion
it.
times.
Yeah.
We've done it. Oh, it's a Jem'Hadar. That's fascinating. And, good
Mhm.
acting doesn't have to be yelling. And so I think it's important to shout out when Renee's acting has gravitas and heaviness to it. The guy literally doesn't emote. That's what's amazing about his performance. Is Odo?
Yeah.
He's under a lot of prosthetics, and when he
Right.
says, "What is the line I have it here? I feel an obligation to undo some of the damage that my race has done to this boy." Just like this, sort of like, I've calculated and thought about why I need to do this, and this is the most important thing I can do right now in life.
Mhm.
I've found new
Yeah.
purpose. I think that's
Yeah.
beautiful. I think if I can be a little emotional for a sec, like, Odo reminds me a little bit of my dad here. Not to say that he's done emotional damage to me, obviously, that's implied. But my dad's a great guy, and he's somebody who approaches the world from a sort of like calculated, like borderline cynical position a lot of times. And
Mm.
a lot of the ways he's raised me as I get older and think about maybe someday having kids of my own is he's been like, hey, the world sucks and it's going to continue to suck and it's bad and you should still keep living. And I
Mm.
love that that's kind of Odo's quote unquote parenting style with this kid. Is like,
Right.
I'm not going to tell you to be lovely and read books and have a good time and everyone's going to be nice to you. Every time we go for a walk, everybody here either wants to kill you or run away from you. I get that.
Mm.
Don't be
Mhm.
scared and don't be afraid to still try to be a person, to be nice.
Yeah.
It's still worth it. I find that really beautiful. I know I'm bringing a lot to it. I acknowledge that the episode isn't like, remarkably deep or profound, but it felt really thought provoking to me.
I think my in my notes I rated this a C. I think my lower rating is because of the other plot, which is
Oh, it sucks.
dumb,
Oh, it's
dumb
so.
and
I
bad.
forgot about it. No, a 16-year-old
So
old dates a 20-year-old. No, no, no.
we'll talk about that in a second. That part's bad. I think the Odo part is fascinating and a great, great first episode to be Odo focused after he has the revelation about his people, where he comes from, and all that stuff. He's got a new apartment where he can like put stuff out and turn into it whenever he wants. It's this beautiful scene where Kira's like, wow, this is so great. He keeps the bucket around, not to sleep in,
As
but
a
to remind
flower pot.
himself.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
to remind
good.
himself of how he had kept himself confined, but now he's allowing himself to be a changeling, but be his own version of that. And that's beautiful. I love the metaphor of that. And I think this is a really great character study in like kind of the core tragedy of parenting, when you say, okay, here are all the things that I understand to be bad about how I was brought up or neglected or
Yeah.
treated poorly as a child. I'm going to do the opposite. Oh, shoot. That has its own problems. Whoops. I did not know because I was not raised this way. And so, and also this like understanding that many of the learnings that I've learned have come at the cost of personal hardship or growth.
Yeah.
And you can't force somebody else to grow just because you tell them what you learned. They have to learn some of those things for themselves. I think where I feel a little funky about it is DS9 like is trying to challenge but also often reiterates these ideas that like what it means to be a particular alien species is core fundamental to who that species is. It's unchangeable. A Ferengi is going to act. A Ferengi
Like
is
the
going to act
Ferengi.
this way. A Klingon's going to act this way. A Jem'Hadar is going to act this way.
Correct.
There's this exchange where Odo's like, Kira, you were trained to be a terrorist. That's what you were raised to be, but you could be different. Like, that's all kind of weird. So they're trying to have this conversation about, are you what your people are, or are you something different? But there's a racial component to that that's just weird and
Yeah.
hard to get around. And the episode ends with like, well, Kira was right. You can't change who people are. But that also is disregarding the fact that this isn't even a cultural thing, it's a biological engineering thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. So it's strange. Like the point they're trying to make the episode feel sad, and it does.
Uh-huh.
But to what end is kind of where I'm left with it.
Yeah, it's not like Hugh is another example of
Yeah,
like we bring
right.
someone on, they seem to be built for killing, but what if we told them that they weren't? How does reprogramming a being work? The difference is that Odo is willing to go all in on this kid. He's like, I will steal an escape pod and quit my job if it means that we can go off and explore the world together. And the kid's like, the only thing I want is to be part of the Jem'Hadar, to be part of my people. Which is, like you just said, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't teach him to drink. That's what Odo wants. If Odo wasn't the kid, so that's why Odo's like, okay, that's a bad choice, but you need to figure out that it's bad. And, I don't know if we see this kid again. I kind of doubt it. He doesn't even have a name. He never gets a name. I think if he had a name, I would have been more inclined to believe that. But, like, that's just really sad. And it's interesting. The difference between TNG and DS9 is, like, the change is possible versus we have to accept change as it is and, like, make little carving out our niche in the world instead of changing the world as grandly as they often did in TNG. That's all I have.
Yeah. I think part of what this plot's trying to do is it's trying to do the Star Trek thing of, the prime directive, right? We can't just impose our cultural values or beliefs onto another society.
Yeah.
We have to let it develop as it's going to develop. And there's something here about that where Odo has this set of beliefs in individual agency, individualism, freedom, choice. You don't have to be who you're destined to be. You don't have to be violent. And arguably, he's developed those beliefs of his own accord, but also under the influence of a essentially human dominated society. I mean, I guess he was part of the Cardassian, operation for a while, but he's really come into his own and I think become the character he is now in the version of DS9 that's operated by Starfleet and the Bajorans. So you could also argue that Odo's trying to impose one set of cultural values onto this Jem'Hadar kid. So the episode's kind of saying like, well, you can't just force somebody to be a certain way, which I appreciate. But then it's like, this kid isn't believing something. He was genetically engineered to have these beliefs. Right. So I don't know. It's odd, but I do respect Odo for going the whole way with like, okay, I'm gonna let you make your own choice. I'm gonna let you hold a gun up to the commander of the space station, and it's your right to choose. Bye. See you later. I think that says a lot about Odo's character, which I appreciated.
Speaking of the commander, let's briefly talk about.
Oh God, I forgot in the last couple minutes that
you know what? When I wrote high A in my notes, I'm like, wait, no. This loses high A status. Jake. Well, okay. I don't despise this plot line. I just feel very uncomfy about it.
It's uncomfy and it's so half baked.
Yes, it's very half baked. And it does bad things for Sisko's character. I think we'll never forget that Sisko got his best character moments in the pilot of the show. It just never sits well with me. I'll never get over it. Jake, his son, is 16 years old and dating a 20-year-old Davo girl, which means a girl who works at the casino and does these like sexual dances, and she's provocative and she's a dancer girl. She's 20, so there's an age difference there. There's a power dynamic there.
Is there dancing, or she just operates the game?
I think it's just more she's the color, she's the personality. Yeah, she does operate the game.
And obviously she's meant to dress in a way that's alluring provocative to the men who are playing, and part of her job is to distract them, get them to bet more and lose the game.
Yeah. What's fascinating is that Sisko's funny in this episode for some reasons that are good and some that are bad. The first line coming back from the cold open is, "You bought a child?" Which is hilarious. And then a scene later, he's like, "I won't have my son dating a Davo girl. That's disgusting." And it's like, what year is it? Literally a couple episodes later, you're going to be like, man, society never really figured it out. I don't know why. And now you're like, my son can't date a Davo girl. That's horrible. What you should say is your son shouldn't date someone 4 years older than him. At the age he's at, with that power dynamic difference, it's just not appropriate for him. It's not going to go well. It can't go well by design.
It's super weird because he kind of does say both when O'Brien's like, why did you invite her over to dinner if you are feeling weird about it? And he's like, because I don't like this. My son is dating an adult woman and I want to put a stop to it. I want to see what this is all about. So there is like the legitimate problem that Sisko has. And then there's the prejudiced issue of, oh, you can't date a Dabo girl. And the episode like just can't figure out how to address both, because on the one hand, her being 20 and him being 16 is not okay. That's no good. Very weird that we're doing that. On the other hand, this whole thing of like me picking and choosing your partner because I'm looking down upon the way that they make money is messed up of Sisko, and he shouldn't judge people in that way. And they have the whole dinner scene where it's like, well, actually she's, really brilliant scientist or something. And later on she goes to science college, and that's pretty cool. And also you don't even know about Jake's secret life as a poet and a hustler. In the casino, which is like its own thing. This plot would be totally fine if...
Get in there, lean that chair. When I hear that chair squeak, I know that hotline bling. I know that only mean one thing.
If like they were both 20 and Jake dropped out of Starfleet Academy or something, and it's like, I don't approve of you dropping out of the academy and dating a Dabo girl, and what the heck? And
Gross.
then Cisco realizes he doesn't even know his own son, and he's holding this against him, and his son has to be able to choose his own life and figure things out for himself, and maybe he is in love even though they're 20 or whatever. All those plot beats read in a movie that's about like young adult children of adults,
Yeah.
not teenagers, not 16-year-olds. It's so weird. Like, I don't understand why they did this and why they're trying to thrust Jake into like romance plots. When 5 minutes ago, him and Nog were like, "Oh, we're just 12 years old and we like looking at butts. Oh,
Yeah.
I don't even know what emotions are." And now Jake is the fucking like Riz King at the casino, hustling people and writing sonnets and shit. It's ridiculous.
What is Dargo's son's name? Joffe.
Oh, oh my God.
Boom, boom. I'm shooting psychic waves of hatred into Michelle's brain right now,
No.
listener.
Oh no. Farscape did it too. Farscape did it worse.
Way worse.
This is the thing that Farscape did worse.
So did Angel.
Definitely.
This
I
power
also
dynamic...
just thought of Angel. Angel did it worse. Why are all these shows doing the like, my teenage son is becoming a sexual adult? What are we doing? Why?
So I think I want to make something clear. Oh my god, I'm so invested in this conversation. I just like zoomed out and realized how much fun I'm having. For 4 years of an age difference, when you're older, when you're past 18, for example,
It's
fine. It's actually,
as you get older,
great.
It becomes less significant.
Correct. We all know this.
Yeah.
16 is just a really crucial. I don't need to explain this to people. I'm saying it for the sake of comments. 16 is a really crucial age to be dating people who are your age and in your very fast and very like high metabolism rate of development period. You really should be dating people.
Physical, emotional, social, psychological change that's happening at that age.
You're
becoming
cooking.
a fundamentally different person day by day.
Yeah. You're in the tail of puberty, which is arguably scarier than the front of puberty. They're both differently scary.
Mm-hmm.
And to date a 20-year-old and then I don't know. I think the answer to your question a second ago, why does Farscape do this? Why does Angel do this? Is besides the fact that it's like appealing for the young viewer to imagine themselves with an older woman, and it's like this sort of fantasy. It's also just this worry of like, what are your kids doing when you're not around? Like in a way, this story is actually about Cisco, and that reminds me. And I wrote this about my notes on past tense as well. All my problems with these episodes are kind of muted by the fact that this was 1994. Like. Our understanding of like feminism and women's rights was in a good place in the 90s, but not and is in a very different place than it is now, right? The way we think about a woman's career, what is a good career for a woman to have, of her to be a working woman, whether that is in a casino or otherwise, all of that is wrapped up in this. And they're not saying Cisco's right, he shouldn't have been with this girl. Like you said, she's actually very smart, and what he's really learning is that he doesn't listen to his son enough. That's the moral of the episode. Is like, maybe your son wouldn't lash out like this if you were a better father to him, and you asked him what his interests were. Maybe he wouldn't have become a hustler, or maybe he'd tell you about it, or he'd tell you about the poetry he's been writing, and you wouldn't have to hear about it from a girl. It's a very common experience as parent. From what I've heard from people who are parents is the acceptance that your kid has interiority and does things completely different than you do. There's the nuance to it. I just, in the episode, it's just not too much to it, and it feels weird.
Yeah. I think that I agree with that, and it kind of, that's where it fits with the Odo plot, right? And it's about parenting and about understanding the agency of your child, and that you can't sort of foist your values or beliefs onto them. You have to let them develop and make their own choices. Yeah. You can do that with a character who's also 16, and that would work fine. And maybe instead of being a Dabo girl, I don't know, her mom's a Dabo girl. How about that? That would make that a lot less weird to me. If it's like, what? She's the daughter of a Dabo girl? And then Cisco has to have this conversation with a Dabo girl mom where she's like, oh, you probably look down on me because you're the commander and I work at Quarks or whatever, but I'm a single mother and I got to make ends meet. Like, do that. And that's cool. I don't know. But yeah, it's like, is this for a younger male audience that they're imagining would enjoy this. Or sometimes I think it's like a kind of like fan fictioning your own teenage years or something. And that's what feels super weird to me
Yeah.
about it and what I don't like. So it's hard to look past that stuff. But I see what you're saying, that within this is the kernel of a human story that is actually very good and good moment for the Jake Ben dynamic.
Yeah, and actually, it's worth noting that The Abandon was directed by Avery Brooks, and the other episode that he directed was the Party episode, which also has really fascinating things to say about relationships.
Interesting. It's also the other one where it's like, let's get Jake Sisko in there, loving people. I read some background information. There's going to be a recurring Dabo girl character later in the show.
Okay.
Who the actor who plays that character was originally cast to play this
one
character. But Avery Brooks thought that she was too sexy and it would be weird. Or like too attractive. The age difference was too pronounced. She seemed too mature.
I'm fascinated by that. I don't know how to square that circle though.
Yeah.
They tried. So that means this is somebody new. So whether it's Brooks or whoever else was like, we got to be careful here.
Right. I don't know. It's weird.
It's a B. I think it's brought down to a B by all that.
It all comes out in the wash. It averages out to a B, I guess. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I have some quick stray notes on this one though.
Yeah. What do you got?
This is the second time we ever see Odo smile when he's rehabilitating the kid, and he's like, "You got to look happy sometimes. Try this. Smile." It's like cheeks are breaking, and then the kid does the same thing. It's very cute, but that's the second time Odo smiles.
Yeah,
it is relatable. Something I think O'Brien tells him, like, I can't believe his people are so cold-blooded. Who teach him to be so like cold-blooded? Because the Jem'Hadar, we also learn, are like making their people dependent on this drug to control them. Just Odo saying,
the founders are making the Jem'Hadar dependent on.
Thank you. That's what it was.
Yeah,
people don't have blood, Chief. This,
That's a good line.
Just a reminder, O'Brien. And then O'Brien's just like, sorry?
Oh, sorry, my bad. That's not my biology's not my thing.
Sorry, my bad. And then I honestly thought they were going to have the kid die to the hologram, because he realizes that he can fight a hologram and keep leveling it up and make it stronger. And I was like,
right.
How weird and bad would it be if they killed him because he was like, I just wanted to fight a hologram. Yeah. It'd be really bad. They didn't do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Any straight notes from you?
All right, so let's no, I think we hit on all of them. Yeah, we got them all.
Excellent. I'll tell you
7.
I'll tell you about civil defense.
Tell me about it.
So this episode's really fascinating. It is very TNG core as well, but that's just the nature of the beast. What seems initially like it's about a Bajoran work stoppage is actually another Coen Brothers concept, where the question asked is, how high can the security alert go on DS9? How high up does it go before it bypasses its ability to stop itself? It's Jake, Sisko, and O'Brien who are investigating something, and they hit on a failsafe that calls Dukat, who puts the ship on lockdown and shuts them out and says, this is a work stoppage. This message is to tell you that you're under, if you guys don't change your rules, you're under arrest. They obviously can't respond because, again, is the message pre-recorded or is he live calling?
It's pre-recorded. Yeah.
So he has this thing that's basically like, it's me, Gul Dukat, and you guys fucked up and you're going to die if you don't, comply with Cardassian law. They can't, so they're like, we just need to escape. A lot of it is about them escaping. As the thing escalates, the communications stop working. Everyone else can't help them. Everyone else is trying to help them. Garrett comes to save the day again. He's like, I'm going to help you guys out with stuff. Eventually, Dukat physically comes onto the station and goes, why did I just get a message from myself that says that there's a work stop? That's not real, is it? Actually, I think I'm going to take over the ship for a little bit. And he gets to be an absolute cartoon villain for about 15 minutes. He brings in he replicates a turret that only attacks non-Cardassians.
That was part of the security protocol before he showed up.
Okay.
automatically replicated the turret. Yeah.
And that's when Garrick is like, I can just walk around. I don't even care. And then him and Ducat have some fantastic back and forth. Basically, or it seems like Ducat kind of orchestrated a lot of this so that he could establish a Cardassian presence on DS9. He's like, I think you guys have had enough Bajoran stuff. If this message went through and worked, then I would. That's what I wanted to do.
It's more like he's taking advantage of the situation, which is what's so fun about it. I gotta say, I think if I had to pick a favorite episode from this bunch, for me it would be this one.
Okay. It's very solid. It's quite solid.
It's pure like popcorn fun. I can't necessarily defend its heart or soul or whatever in the same way, but I think what's so special about it, you said that it was TNG coded, which in some ways it is, because it's like, oh shoot, the ship's gonna explode, we gotta stop it.
Yeah.
But in other ways, it's that special kind of episode that can only happen on Deep Space Nine, where you say, oh shoot, there's a weird thing because the Cardassians used to live
it
here,
was already in here.
They left something here and now we have to deal with it. And that is hilarious to me. The escalating levels of Ducat being like, well, if we got this far, it probably means I'm dead. And now we're going to kill everybody. And then the like huge laugh for me is Ducat. He came in, he's like, okay, I think I can use this situation that's happening totally by accident to my advantage. Very Ducat of him. I'm going to try to convince them to let me establish a Cardassian presence on Deep Space Nine. And then he's like, I'm going to let you think about this. And he tries to transport her away. And then his boss comes on the screen, another pre-recorded message. And it's like, Ducat, you stinker. You're probably trying to abandon ship right now, aren't you? I'm not going to let you. You're going to die on Terek Nor because you're bad at your job.
You're fired!
So funny. Oh my God. I lost it at that. That was so good.
Yeah, that's what I mean by it being another Coen Brothers. It's just like, how bad can this get? Oh, worse?
Yeah.
Oh, way worse? Okay, let's go
so funny.
A little further. Very funny. Yeah. I had fun. I had a good time. I liked like O'Brien and Jake and Cisco like escaping this room like it's like a challenge on Survivor or something. Like, if we the uridium, if we get an electric wire out of the wall and then pull it, we'll make dynamite. It's like kind of
crawling
fun.
Through green fire or something. Sure.
If one of us falls, the other one goes. Like as if these boys are gonna die. Cisco and O'Brien crawl through the vents, and then Jake saves O'Brien, and then O'Brien's like, Jake, he said you're not supposed to go in there, and he's like, secret safe with me if it's safe with you. And then O'Brien's like, okay, 16-year-old, you almost died. Yeah. I'm not going to tell your dad that was partly my fault. Okie dokie.
Yeah. Pretty funny. I just love, I also love the implication that this is not the only thing that could have gone wrong. So there are probably many other pre-recordings that Ducat made one afternoon where he was just scribbling like, what else could go wrong? Okay, there's a worker revolt. Okay, maybe like somebody boards the place. And I don't think they're ever going to do this episode plot again, but I could imagine a version of the DS9 world where there are like hundreds of these and you just trip them every once in a while.
Yeah.
Oh God, Ducat accounted for this too.
If you're listening to this, then you use the replicator to make really bad chocolate, and you've
I don't
disabled
like
chocolate.
Chocolate, yeah.
If you're listening to this, then you made it so everybody's drunk on the ship, and you guys are really stupid. So here's a hangover cure that my mom came up with.
Oh, that's actually pretty helpful. Thank you, Ducat.
Thanks, Ducat.
I also love seeing Garrick and Ducat together. They're just
delicious.
Hatred of each other. It's great.
This episode was directed by Reza Badier, who is an Iranian director, by the way, who you may recognize from direct. Well, so he did like title sequences. He did the title sequence for the old Hawaii Five-0, amongst other shows. Chatz alum. He directed the Invisible Girl episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, season 1.
My God.
That's the same Reza. So shout outs to him, I guess.
Stop it.
Yeah. Any other notes or thoughts?
One of those early bad season 1 episodes.
Bad. Bad.
there's a line where Kira says, "Any luck?" and then Garrick says, "Plenty of it, Major. Unfortunately, all of it bad."
All the bad.
Good line. Let's see. There's a really funny bit between Garrick and Ducat is sort of like, well, this situation calls for my superior Cardassian intellect, and Garrick's like, bro, stop flirting with Kira Nerys. She doesn't like you like that.
She's not into you, bro.
Ducat doesn't argue it or deny it, so that is what's going on there, which is pretty funny. Also, the whole time, Odo and Quark are stuck in his office, and when the rest of the security force field shut down, his stays on because his was apparently on a different system, because Ducat had accounted for the fact that he is like too honorable.
The changeling on the Cardassian ship.
And Quark's like, your integrity is going to get us killed because they're stuck in there. And then adorable button where Quark is reading his security file.
Oh yeah.
He's like, wait, I thought you said that I was really smart. What about that? And Odo's like, we're gonna die. Whatever. I don't know.
I say weird things when I'm in love. What?
They don't ever go back to the bridge and show like, where did Ducat go? What did he say at the end of this? Which is a little strange. But
is he in trouble?
Really
is he actually fired? I think he's fired.
Yeah. So I loved it. I would give it an S personally. I think that's high, maybe an A. I don't know. This was a delight.
I feel like I'm so cynical of this app. I don't want to give it an S.
We can give it an A. That's okay.
That's a high A though. I'll give you that. It does everything right. Just I don't know. Something in the air at this new apartment. That might be what it is. 7 down, 6 to go. Let's keep cooking, Magellan, huh?
Okay. Yeah, let's cook.
We're gonna get some bad ones, so these will be easier. 308 is Meridian. Meridian, the Defiant. Oh, Jonathan Frakes directed and co-stars in a cameo guest appearance, except it's not William Riker. It's Thomas Riker. Do you guys remember that episode?
That's the Defiant. We gotta talk about Meridian first.
Oh shit. Oh, sorry. Frakes did direct this one, right? Oh, let me look at some reading. Alan's doing some reading.
I'm not sure.
Disregard. No, Frakes directed this. Frakes did direct this.
Dax one.
Correct. Meridian's periodically warped. This one sucks. Yeah, sorry. No, this one really sucks.
Whoa.
Hated it.
This does not suck. It's funny that Jonathan Frakes directed it because this is like basically a Riker episode. Like Jadzia Dax is doing a Riker episode.
You swap the genders and make him Riker or make her Riker. This is a Riker episode. Top to bottom.
Yeah, like we've watched this episode with William Riker before.
Sorry, I got this mixed up with the next episode. You're right.
This one sucks. What are you talking about?
She falls in love with a guy who's part of a society of people who periodically warp into another dimension where they don't age. But the amount of time that they're in that dimension...
And they're incorporeal in that other dimension.
Correct. They're incorporeal. Yes. The amount of time that they're in there is going longer and longer, and someday they're going to be stuck there, and they're going to not exist anymore. So they're a dying race, and there's sort of tragedy happening. That's our A plot. Dax is falling in love with him. She eventually agrees to maybe join him in that society, but tragically, love was not meant to be for Dax here. I love the implication that she's lived such a long series of lives that, he's like, I'll see you in whatever 60 years, and she's like, all right, I'll see you, but that sucks, man. That's a long time when you're living in eternity. And so she can't go because her being there means the rest of the race can't go incorporeal. So she leaves him, and he says, I'll see you in 60 agonizing years. ... And meanwhile, the B plot is that Quark is trying to sell a guy a sex hologram of Kira, but she finds out and makes it a
terrible. Yes.
She makes it into a hologram of Quark with her body. That's the worst B plot of the season.
Yeah,
it's
let's
repulsive.
Talk about that real quick.
It's fucking repulsive, bro. And it's
awful.
The twist is funny. Whatever the shot, it's a little weird. It's very 90s. This like pan up the legs. Oh my god, she's so hot. She's in bed. Oh my god, it's Quark. It's also like, I don't love these like it's actually a man jokes ever. It always like
that's kind of what
the whiff of transphobia, right? It's embarrassing.
Homophobia too, yeah.
Correct. The alien that wants this hologram is such an incel that he's like, she rejected me, and so I want to pay $1 bajillion for a hologram where she has sex with me. What a filthy dude. What a sad sack of shit to be in this episode for Quark to be like, oh, a money-making opportunity, though. I'm sure I can do this. Like,
right.
Again, Quark, no morals whatsoever. I get it. Like, that's a very Ferengi thing to do, but Jesus, Quark. And,
yeah. My issue with the episode, obviously it's like extremely off-putting and gross that there is this guy who wants this thing. And also, it's feasible to me that in a world where Quark is running his bar and he has his holo suites, somebody is going to want a custom program of a specific person.
Yeah.
I think we're moving in that direction in our real world with AI technology, where within our lifetimes there's going to be moral, ethical, legal concerns about people creating like pornographic AI versions of real people. That's a thing. Yeah. So there is a sci-fi plot where you could examine that. But like I was saying earlier, and like you were saying, Quark is he's a main character on the show. We have to live with him for 4.5 more seasons and care about him, invest in him, believe in him. So in this episode where they're just kind of like, he's a Ferengi, he just wants to make money, so he's going to like totally steal all of Kira Neresa's biometric and psychometric data for money and create this program of her. It's like, really? Then why the fuck is he here, and why do I care about him ever again?
The difference is this. Sorry, finish your point.
Yeah. Well, it's just like, I have to scrub this plot out of my brain to accept the fact that Quark continues to be on the show. Yeah. You know what
I mean? The problem for me is not Quark is too unscrupulous. The problem is that he doesn't get kicked off. He can do
there's anything. No consequence. Right.
You would get kicked off. You're a bartender. Like, he's not a diplomat. Right. We don't actually need Quark here. But he just...
Right.
What attachment does he have to the ship that they're like, well, he has complete immunity from doing anything. She's like a lead member of the crew, and he made a digital version of her that for a guy to have sex to goon to. Sorry.
Yeah.
And he's allowed to stay. That's the part that's weird. I think it's interesting to have a character whose whole race is based on lack of morality and scruples. I think there's something there, I guess. But like, there's only so far you can take that joke before I'm like, guys, he gets fired. Why doesn't he get fired?
Right. And we also know that it's not true that Quark lacks scruples and morality. Like,
a couple episodes ago.
Yeah, and maybe there's like something that you could examine about, culturally the Ferengi don't really have these hang-ups or beliefs about like, whatever, sexuality or people's like privacy. Maybe he doesn't believe in that thing, and so we have to have a conversation about that. Whatever. If that's what you want to do, then you need to have characters talk about that and surface those philosophical differences. But also, like, I don't want to keep entertaining the Ferengi's like rampant sexism as a philosophical difference, which happens later in the season in a super weird way with Jake and Nog that we'll talk about.
Yes.
So, like you're saying, Odo has been wanting to kick Quark off of the station for years. And Quark is the sloppiest he's ever been with his nefarious dealings. He just hacks into the computer to download her personal data. And Odo's like, I have proof that Quark did it. I'm going to go arrest him. And Kira's like, no, let's just play a prank on him. What are you saying? What are you talking? Like, this isn't a fun little time at the movies right now. This is like a violation of your personal information, personage, life, and likeness by someone who we don't really like or want to be here. It's nuts that this plot is just here, and then it's like, okay, see you next week. No, thank you.
What did Amanda watch this one with you?
Yeah, she felt the same way. She was like, yuck, disgusting. And she generally doesn't like Quark and finds him repugnant and has a hard time, even with like the episode where he's with the Klingons and he saves the lady, but he kind of says, some not so great things, or puts his hand on her leg and she's like, I'm going to let you take your hand off my leg instead of killing you. And Amanda's kind of like, ugh, Quark. And so, of course, this episode, she's like, what the fuck? Why is he still here on the show?
Chatz listener, are we off base? Are we being too harsh on the Quark stuff?
No, we're not off base.
Okay.
We're base. In this case, we're not. I'm confident that we're not off base here. Because again, they could have done a thing where it's like, oh, us Ferengi, we feel differently about this stuff. And you could have even done the thing where Quark does 2 of his 3 attempts. He tries to trick her. It's a pretty funny scene where he's like, you're the millionth customer. Here's what you win. And Nana Visitor plays it funny where she's like, oh, okay. Actually, I kind of do want to get my prizes. That sounds fun. He could have done that. He could have done his sneaky thing with the camera. And then he's like, wait, what am I doing? I can't believe. And then it could have even just been Quark who put himself in the program.
Yeah.
As a
He's like, okay, I felt bad at the end and I actually deleted it and put myself in it.
Yeah, you could have done the same plot more or less, but have him have a character arc in the episode. And instead he doesn't. And like, what's the prank on Quark? The guy's mad at him.
He doesn't get his money.
Quark doesn't even know what happened, So it's like, huh?
Yeah, he just doesn't get his money. That's all. That's the only thing that Quark suffers in this one. And Odo and Kira continue to hate him. Great. Just the board is reset.
Ridiculous. Bad.
Tell me a little bit more about how you felt about the A plot, because I don't have any notes on it other than I think that Terry Farrell's a good actress and I like seeing her, and I found this plot sappy, and I did feel like it was a Riker plot with the gender swapped.
I'm a sucker for the Riker plots from TNG. He goes to a planet, he's in love, or like the Picard plots sometimes are like this too.
Yeah, those are usually more fun though, but yeah.
We're in love, whatever. Blah, blah, blah. We can't be together. It's like that works for me sometimes.
Sure.
This kind of felt on the level of like Riker, and the hologram music lady who had a music name.
Oh,
who he falls in love with.
Yeah,
Minuet. It kind of felt like that, where it's like, wow, this is a deep, deep love that is doomed from the start. And
shout outs to the Google search Riker hologram lady for coming up with a Minuet right away. Cha-ching.
Obviously, like that, that episode has its own stuff, and he's in love with the hologram, whatever. That's weird, but in terms of like from an emotional perspective, I think it resonates. And it's a pretty quick to go from this guy who's like, I'm only corporeal every 60 years, and I love eating food and having sex because I get to feel stuff. Going from that to being like, and now I'm in love with you. I love you so much. But what I like about it is they really emphasize Jadzia is not a person who gets emotionally invested like this. Mm-hmm. When she feels this, it's special and unique for her. And we kind of get this perspective on her particular experience of love and romance as it contrasts with the fact that she knows a lot about love and romance from these past lives, but it means something different to her. And I think they do a lot to make them cute, and they have pretty good chemistry. There's a lot of like, we're flirting, we're climbing a tree together, we're flirting some more. A lot of foreplay in this episode.
A ton.
Narratively speaking. He's like, you always do that when you concentrate. She says, what? He says, bite your lower lip. Anyway, you want to go back to my planet and walk around a bit?
Smoking hot, by the way, when Terry Farrell notices it and then does it.
So, I think it works on that level. And then they really go all the way with Dax saying, I'm leaving. Like, I'm going to stay on this guy's planet with him.
I'm taking a 6 month, or was it 60 year?
60 years. She's like,
I'm taking a 60-year leave.
Like, okay. Yeah. At first he's like, okay, I'll leave with you. I could leave this planet. But then I think he's in this pretty real dilemma of, well, I love you, I want to leave, but you know,
It's my
my
people.
people, they don't have so many guys,
Yeah.
right? So like I got to stick around with them so that we can impregnate because we fixed the planet and it can be stable now the next time we come back.
Yes.
So there's like he has this dilemma. She's like, okay, fine, I'll stay. We have all these tender goodbyes where
Mm-hmm.
they really say goodbye. Like Cisco really says goodbye to Dax, and we do it and cry about it. I love it. I love that they go all the way to the point of the planet is disappearing
Yeah.
and she physically is not able to go and can't disappear. It's like, okay, yeah. I don't know.
It's an interesting position the show finds itself in season 3, where the characters
Mhm.
like each other a lot, but they wouldn't go hell or high water to stay with each other. Like, these are all people. This is like why, Keiko
Mhm.
can leave. It's like, even though we're married, even the people who are married are like, oh, I have things I have to do, and they leave. People walk off of
Mhm.
DS9 all the time. That's
Right.
also That's also why I'm surprised Quark isn't fired. Is like, if we're all so like loosely related and
Yeah.
having fun with each other, then and she can just leave for 60 years because she loves like a hot guy, then why do we keep Quark on the ship? None of us like each
Yeah.
other here. I like that
Yeah.
not everybody likes each other on DS9, to be clear. I think it's a cool
Yeah.
dynamic.
I think you got to have that in a when it's a station instead of a crew. Yeah.
Yes, and I think you earn it by the end of the show. They'll be like, I would die for you. I would do anything for you. They have to get there though.
Right.
So this is a C, if not a D for me, buddy.
Whoa,
Ooh.
whoa, whoa, whoa.
Whoa. Okay, C it is. C it is. C it is.
Whoa, whoa,
You
whoa,
want a
whoa,
B
whoa.
for romantic nonsense? B or C?
Look. Look. Here's the thing. The Quark Kira Odo subplot is like F. Put it in the bottom of the garbage can. Bad, worst plot of the season. Worst plot of the show so far. Okay.
Yes, correct.
The A plot to me, as someone who likes this kind of lovey thing, oh, doomed, oh my god, we wanted to be together in the mind goop, but we couldn't do it. I was like, A or S? A plot?
Oh.
I don't know.
I was gonna try and put up a notice on my phone that said Magellan's wilding right now, listener, but it didn't work. It didn't work. What?
uh,
Sorry. A really for that plot? Okay, balance them out. A and F. What's in the middle? Ooh.
C's in the middle. All right, fine.
Yes.
Fine.
Yes. I need to book us a whole hour to talk about 311 and 312, so we got to start cooking. Book us an hour. Okay, Defiant. I tried describing this one earlier. I was wrong. It's this one. 309 Defiant. I watched it last night. This is a cameo episode featuring Jonathan Frakes as Thomas Riker from Second Chances, the TNG episode where the teleporter makes a clone of him. Thomas Riker has joined the Maquis and steals the Defiant and attempts to use it to find a Cardassian weapons depot that they are building up, and for some reason that we are not informed of in this episode, we don't learn the ultimate purpose of the Cardassians building up a weapons depot, but that's kind of weird. Let's just sit on that.
No, we it's specifically the Obsidian Order is secretly creating their own fleet, presumably to stage a coup of the Cardassian government.
Okay. The Obsidian Order. We're cooking the Obsidian Order as something to reckon with this season. So Kira's worried about that. She's trying to because she realizes in the narrative that she is the Riker of this show in a lot of ways. And she's like, and she's a Bajoran. So she's like, I understand why you want to do it. And I think it's a bad idea. I think it's going to go very badly for you. They eventually compromise with the Cardassian government. And Thomas Riker is sent to a labor camp instead of being killed, which is a wild end for Thomas Riker. Because he breaks like 27 laws to do this. Cisco cuts a deal with Dukat, where Dukat gets the Defiance logs on the weapons factory. It's basically helping them figure out what's going on with the Obsidian Order in exchange for Riker not being killed.
Mm.
Um, that's the stuff. This is kind of like a double twist episode. It's like, who's the guy? Oh, it's Riker. Also, what's going on with the weapons depot? And then it's a sad ending for our boy Thomas. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think this one's got some great action and some great tension building. I like to see Jonathan Frakes, and comparing him more and more specifically to Kira is fun. I found this one a little bit boring.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's trying to be this kind of like action thriller thing, but a lot of it is just people sitting in chairs because that's what Star Trek is. So,
And this is Hunt for
yeah.
October, baby. They made this into a whole movie, and it was awesome. Tension
Yeah.
building with people sitting in chairs threatening to do something really bad that might cause a bigger problem is like
Mm-hmm.
great spy fiction.
No, you're right. You're
Any thoughts or notes?
right. Yeah, I don't know. I thought this one was okay. I rated it an A, but I don't agree with that rating. I think I was just feeling good. I was enjoying Star Trek
Yes.
when I watched this. I think it's fun to see Jonathan Frakes again. Um, it's striking when he takes off the beard parts of the beard and it's just the goatee. And
Yeah.
you think, buddy,
Who
I
is that?
don't know, you got to put those little bits of hair back on.
Please.
Your sexiness dropped down a couple notches. It's amazing what facial hair does for that man. He's handsome, clean shaven. Look,
Correct.
okay,
But it
don't get me
fixed.
wrong.
TNG got good when he got the beard, so
Yes, yeah, he carried
made a
a
show
show
good.
on his beard. Yeah, 100%. So it's pretty funny when he's. It's also just a funny visual when it's like, oh, want to see that I'm the evil one? Let me show you I
Yeah.
only have a goatee. Silly
I mean, the
stuff.
Mirror Universe established that, right? You're evil when you have
Yeah,
a
yeah,
goatee.
yeah. I was proud of myself that uh as soon as he asked, like, oh, let me see the Defiant, in my notes I'm like,
That's not.
okay, what's going on here? That's
Yeah.
not the real him, right? And then I was like, oh, wait a minute, wasn't there an episode where there was like a second Riker or something? So
Good job.
I'm happy that I figured it out.
Figured it out.
Yeah. Interestingly, I saw in your notes that you were like, when does this air relative to TNG?
Mm.
It's, as we were saying, it's later in the year that TNG ended. So this is a little toss it to the fans of,
Remember Thomas?
I know that TNG ended like 6 months ago, but I remember this guy and Jonathan Frakes. Pretty fun show, right?
And this is the end of Thomas Riker, by the way. We don't see what happened in the camp. There's a book.
That's sad. Okay, there's a book.
There's a book where Kira like tries to rescue him or something, but that's it. We don't see Thomas again.
Okay. It makes sense. I don't think you can make this guy like a big character because then you're overshadowing the main character. Like as soon as Jonathan Frakes is here, he just sucks up all this plot energy and feels very protagonisty, which is fine for a one episode thing, but I wouldn't want him to recur. But it is a pretty tragic ending that he's like, okay, I guess I'm just in this camp for life.
At least I'm alive.
Because, yeah.
Because he spent 9 years with the Maquis, which, by the way, love to see the Maquis again. Still want more of that, but
yeah, come on.
Stop teasing.
This is the thing about DS9 is they have all the pieces, right? They're
the
like
best
okay,
show ever
made. There's the Dominion, all this stuff, and then they're like, all right, so we're gonna do basically like a on the planet episode, and back on the station, this guy wants to have a hologram of Major Kira, and you're like, no, do an episode about all of the actors and organizations and the socio-political tension that you've been building over the course of 2.5 seasons.
Can't.
Nah, I think we're gonna go back to like San Francisco in the distant past. No, stop it.
That's the other reason.
Do a show about the stuff that you're doing.
Yeah, we're doing
so
everything
do a little
but
bit of it here, and it's fun.
Everything but the stuff we want. And I think this, two other things. This is when the Romulan cloaking thing pays off. He uses it, and they're like, "Oh, that sucks. We can't find him. He's completely unfindable because we chose to do that. That's our problem back at us." And I just enjoy Ducat. I always say this. He's so fun. They have this,
awesome.
thing now where whenever he's in an episode, he always has a drink, like some sort of mug, so that when someone gives him shocking information, he can go, huh.
It's so
Slurp.
good. It's so good that we cut to the scene where Cisco's briefing him, and he has his cup, and he has this huge bottle that like towers above his head. It's ornate and twisty. He brought it himself. Like, there's no way they had this in this briefing room. Ducat brings his own intimidating fancy liquor bottle and glass as part of the bit. It's so funny and camp. I love that guy.
Sorry, something about the idea of him like bringing his ornate Stanley cup with his 87 anime stickers on it, and like it's the funniest thing in the world to me. Apparently, I love it so much.
He definitely had at least a 30-second decision-making process when Cisco gave him a call, said, "Hey, I got to tell you some stuff." He's like, "Okay, cool. I'll be there soon." And he goes over to his bar cart and he's like, "Which one of my fancy liquors will I take with me to DS9?"
Yeah.
So funny.
God bless.
I also love the snarky Obsidian Order lady who's on the bridge, and she just keeps making fun of Ducat for not being very smart. And he essentially almost like, loses his job over this whole situation.
Ducat almost loses his job, happens twice in this season. It's great.
Yeah, pretty fun. I have like one or two little stray notes.
Is there a riot happening outside? Is that the Bell riots? I think John's listening to the Bell riots, y'all. They said in the history books it happens in August, but
let me go see what this is. Hold on.
Okay, I'll entertain the listener. Hey guys, I'm sorry about this. Is like becoming a thing now on the video version. It actually does happen in the before we started doing video, but now because it's harder you can't cut video as easily without it looking awkward, so we're vamping more. So that's why this is happening more. That has happened like 2 weeks in a row. But all I heard from Discord was like, what you guys heard is like, yeah. So that sounded like a protest of some sort. We're about to find out what that was, though. I'm really curious because we're so close to talking about past tense, which we're already at 2 hours 15, and I really wanted to talk about past tense for like a straight hour. I'm sorry, this episode's gonna be so long, but you only get it once in a blue moon, so deal with it, fuckers. I'm kidding. I love you all so much. You know that. And I also apologize for the video version for me eating dinner. I'm so hungry, and my mom brought me dinner, and I'm hoping with this new apartment that I can like just make dinner for myself more often and like not have to keep relying on that. It's a crutch that I acknowledge, but neither here nor there. Let's hear from Magellan. Welcome back. Hi.
It was a pro-Palestine march.
Am I allowed to say this on the podcast? Let's go.
That was your guess. That was your guess.
No, that wasn't my guess. I'm just happy that that's happening. That's great. Do you want to go?
Wait,
do you want to attend it?
They got too far away.
Oh, okay. Oh. Yeah, sure. So Magellan's just gave me the 1 minute finger. I'm still not gonna edit any of this out. I'm just gonna talk to you guys. So we're talking about apartment. I really love this place, guys. It's a studio. I'm 1 mile away from where I used to live. I haven't given the keys back for the old place yet. I want to. They're actually gonna show it to new people tomorrow, and I'm curious if they're gonna get mad that I pulled wallpaper off the wall with my sound dampening equipment. So I'm planning to paint over it probably. I don't want to have to do that for an old apartment that I'm leaving, but like, I just hate them so much. I'm okay saying that on pod. I truly dislike my previous landlord and his family and how they've treated us in the past 2 years. So I feel like I shouldn't have to paint it, but like, it's in a slightly worse state than it was when I moved in. And when they see it tomorrow, I'm sure that I'm gonna get a text that's like, "Alan, why you're not allowed to have the paint come off the wall?" Like, come on, the wallpaper sucks. The house is old. That's not my fault. It's kind of my fault, but it's fine. So gotta fix that. And then there's 2 tables still over there. One of them I need to throw, probably both of them I need to throw away. And then we're gonna like deep clean the whole place. We're gonna like scrub it dub. It's mostly clean at this point, but we're gonna like scrub it dub. And then I'm settled here. And like I said, we'll have more art here. I'm probably going to get some sort of sound paneling that's not stuck to the wall eventually. I don't really know what else. Oh, and I'm going to get a different desk. This desk, I don't know if I said that on pod or not. Oh no, it was before pod. It's too big. It's just a little, like I'm like right against the wall. If you're on video, like I'm right on this wall behind me. It's totally doable. It's serviceable, but like I deserve comfort, right? And I have like 5 more boxes of knickknacks and figures and Billy Bobs that need to go somewhere. And if I had a desk with storage, I could put those somewhere. So, bit by bit. I think tonight after this recording, I'll do some more unpacking. It is 8 p.m. my time right now. John's really been gone for a while, huh? This is interesting. I wonder what he's doing. He's probably asking Amanda what's going on, or talking to someone downstairs about what's going on. Asking his roommates, maybe. Oh, there he is. He heard me. Welcome back to the king of the pod himself. It's Magellan.
All right, I'm back.
Welcome back. Everything
Let's
good?
Talk about television. Yeah, everything's good.
Good. So we just gave Defiant a B.
A B, huh? Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
I think I have 1 or 2 stray notes that I wanted to hit on.
Groomby.
Cisco asks Riker before we know that it's Thomas Riker, what brings you to DS9? And he says, strictly pleasure.
That's Will Riker coded.
Such a Riker line. Strictly pleasure. Then they have this weird interaction where Riker's like, last time I was here, I did some gambling and won a bunch of Latinum and got a date with a Dabo girl. And Cisco's like, well, one of those Dabo girls is dating my son. And you're like, no continuity about that, please.
Stop.
And then there was one other thing. Oh, he has a little comeback to Nerys, which is not as cool as he thinks it sounds, where she's like, oh, you're trying to be a hero. And he says, you shouldn't go fishing today. You're not going to catch anything.
Again, like, you wrote it. You
okay,
said
Dad, you got me.
It's a boomer joke.
Yeah. So anyway, B sounds good.
Next up is the next Avery Brooks directed episode, 310, Fascination. Oh God, I don't want to belabor this one, but it's an episode where everyone falls in love with each other. Yeah, it truly is. Peldor John and its expression of joy for the Bajoran Gratitude Festival, where I will say one thing that directorially I like is that every time something's happening, we pan around the festival happening. The festival is always happening. It's not in the background. It's in front of us. We show it, and then the camera goes whoop and pans around it to like, here's Kira. Ooh, here's Barial. Here's Jake. I like that. It establishes that, like you were saying earlier, like there's people on the ship. They do stuff. They celebrate it. That part's fun. I love seeing Loaxana Troy. Did I expect this to be a plot about Loaxana Troy being in menopausal heat and that causing a virus on the ship? No. Do I like that? No. The only salvageable thing about this episode to me is it's some of the best Keiko and O'Brien relationship stuff. Because the twist is that they are not affected by the virus and that they are just dealing with regular old marital problems when you haven't seen your girl for a while and she's back for 2 days and all you want to do is go out and then come back and have sex and all she wants to do is sleep. Who can't relate? Not me. Wait.
I don't totally get why it doesn't affect them. Do they explain that?
They don't touch her. They never touched Loaxana.
Okay. You have to touch her? That's how it works?
It's like nearby or near physical contact, yeah.
Okay, so they just never go near her. So you're wondering, is it a whole ship thing?
Correct.
During the episode. Got it.
Everyone else at some point goes very close to her or physically touches her. So it's kind of, she has aura, as the kids like to say. But you wrote this, you made a great point in your notes. We just watched the Xena episode that did this better. We just did the season 2 finale.
So much better.
He's a better version of everybody falls in love with everybody. Majan did the diagram last week. It was very funny. And now everyone's falling in love with each other. And they do the thing we wanted of like, what if they reset it and more people fall in love with more? Instead of resetting it, though, it's more like they just keep adding lines. And it's annoying. And it's so horny. I have a headache.
It's really pronounced, I think, the way I felt about A Comedy of Eros, the Xena episode, versus this one, where in that one, you have 4 characters. You got Xena, Gabrielle, Joxer, and Draco. And I was really enamored with the idea of like, whoa, there's so many different ways you could arrange who loves who, and it's interesting in each of those arrangements.
Mm-hmm.
And in this episode, it's not. Like, I don't care
Nope.
about
Nope.
any
Nope.
of them or think that any of them are entertaining, funny, dramatic.
Nope.
Some of them I think are like straight up off-putting.
Yep.
When Jake is like, "Oh, I'm in love with Kira Nerys. Oh, I love you, Major. Oh, Dad, what are you, jealous or whatever?" It's like, get Jake out of this plot. Take Jake away, far away. He's a child. This isn't funny to me. Is that what it's supposed to be? Like, I don't get that. The Dax is in love with Cisco thing is like kind of funny, I guess.
It's
but
funny
also
until the point where
weird.
they say it was subconscious all along, and they basically say like, let's not think about that.
Right. Right. Yeah, they didn't need to do that at the end when Bashir's like, it only worked on people who already wanted to be with each other. And it's like,
I understand why Jake wanted to be with Kira because he's
say that.
clearly likes older women, but
sure.
I don't want to think about Dax liking Cisco in the slightest. I whatever. If you want to ship it, like Curzon and him, and you know they've known each
Sure,
other for
kiss
so
your
long.
friends. Like maybe they actually did make out at some point.
Yeah,
or
and like
whatever.
Bashir's horny for everyone, so Bashir liking Kira kind of makes sense. He just any woman.
Yeah,
with,
Bashir's handsome. Why wouldn't you want to kiss a handsome guy?
Sure, Bareil, you know, also has a thing with Dax. Like it's all there. But
like it's not. It doesn't defy logic that these people would have a latent attraction to the person that they express feelings for, but it kind of breaks like an unspoken code of these episodes in TV shows, which is like it's all for fun and not real.
mm-hmm.
Like we're just playing around. It was fakey, and now we can go back and not worry about it. Because if you do the thing where well actually people had to really be attracted to each other, then you need to deal with the ramifications of that, and that gets messy, and that's not fun to do. So
Correct.
We're not going to do that. Hey, honestly, I would rather go watch.
Oh, he's typing.
I would rather go watch The Naked Now than this episode.
Magellan, Jeffrey.
Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 1, Episode 3, The Naked Now.
It's more fun. That's true.
It's more fun.
Yeah, I agree.
Data's fully functional. That's weird and fun.
Boing.
And bad. Bad episode. Real bad episode. But we call that so bad it's good.
Correct. This isn't so bad it's good. This is just bad. I don't know how many.
This is bad.
I don't think DS9's going to really get that many so bad it's good episodes. The thing is, two things I like about this episode. I mentioned the Keiko and O'Brien stuff. I also like Odo and Loaxana quite a bit, and I wish that was more prominent because I totally get why the Loaxana we follow now for so many years would love someone like Odo, because as we saw in that previous beautiful episode of them together, she sees a lot of herself in him. She empathizes with his condition, his desire to feel like he belongs. The fact that he's resistant to her advances is appealing to her. She likes a chase, she likes a challenge, and she likes to pull it out. I can fix him. It's all there. There's like a real cool adult love between Odo and Loxana that could blossom in theory if Odo wasn't the most like asexual coded man in existence, and if he didn't probably like Kira. But there's not enough of that in this episode at all. And yeah, this is a Loxana episode. This should be an awesome. I love her. She's my queen.
She's barely in it.
Exactly.
I feel like we see so little of her. For an episode that hinges on her attraction and love for Odo is contagious, essentially.
Yeah.
We don't explore that much at all. We just kind of rehash like, hey, remember when I was into you before? I'm back, and I still feel that way. Gotta go.
Cool.
Okay. Bummer.
Yeah, big time.
Here's what I liked from the episode. Random things that I liked.
Do it. Popcorn notes.
Loxana Troy's outfit is great.
Always.
The scarves or whatever's happening there is pretty good. Continuing what we were saying about Miles and Keiko, they're having an argument. It's real. I was worried in this episode, like, is this the
end?
divorce episode or
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
It's not. They're just like, okay, we got problems and it's fine.
But I love you too much, and I want to keep working with them with you.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And like the love that he feels isn't the fake Loxana love, like you were saying. He genuinely, actually, in the rightness of his mind, submitted a resignation to Cisco to be with his wife. And that's very nice. There's a guy doing fushigi at one point.
Yeah,
bar,
totally
like guiding us through a scene transition, just like doing fushigi in front of the camera. Really good.
You are so right. There totally is.
Really
in one of those ambient, like, we're panning around people doing stuff, there is just a guy doing fushigi.
It's really good. Other thing I liked, when O'Brien asks his daughter he said, "Where's mommy?" She says, "In her room, sad."
Yeah.
I
Molly's
thought that was
good.
funny.
Molly's really good.
And then the last thing I want to say is it sucks that this is the last episode where Belial is like fully well.
Yeah, it is. No,
Isn't that
you're
a
right.
bummer?
That's so sad. I like
Doesn't that
Belial.
suck? Like,
It does.
That's awful.
Damn it.
So, anyway.
I have some quickies.
Okay.
Early in the episode, and I just have to, do the sort of, Bashir X anyone ships I can. Bashir X O'Brien, beginning of the episode, Keiko and Molly left the station. He uses O'Brien as his sort of, punching bag. They play racquetball for hours. Or O'Brien uses him as a punching bag. They play racquetball for hours and hours and hours to, quote, fill the hole left by my wife. Sheesh. And then, and I quote, Bashir says, "My wrist can't take this abuse anymore." Hello? What's going on?
Not just that. At the end of the episode, when Keiko and Molly get on the thing, Bashir is right there behind the door, like, "All right, you ready to get back to it?"
Wild. Nuts. They know what they're doing.
That ship is there.
It's just, Bashir's gay with everyone. I get it. He's also a chaser. He's just gay with everyone. I love Molly. When Molly comes back and Miles is like, and it's just like expectations versus reality, right? My wife's back. We're going to have the festival. We're going to have so much good sex. My daughter is here. She's growing up. She's so good. Molly, my love, how are you? Blah! She vomits on him. Because Loxana gave her candy, which is perfect. I just love that detail. They use Molly in good ways.
Yeah. And also, like, there's no sci-fi reason why she's sick. She just got sick and puked.
She ate candy. And it's just to be like, also Loxana's here and she's having fun. That's it.
Yeah. Right.
That's why I like it. O'Brien being jealous of one of the other botanists, I felt like was a weird touch, to the point where
I didn't love that.
The scene where he knocks on the door to Keiko and says, like, "I'm really sorry about what I said. I'm willing to leave for you and I love you." And she's like, "Can we talk about this later?" I was like, are we going to see that Keiko is like with another man?
Or like on the phone with him? I thought for sure that is what it was going to be.
I was so scared. I said, don't ruin the one stable marriage on this whole show, you guys. Holy crap. They did not do that, but it felt like it because they had just talked about the other thing too. And I was like, but no, it's not that.
Yep.
He's willing to quit his job to move with her. That's all I got.
Is a D. It's got to be worse than Meridian. I insist.
Yeah, objectively, it's worse than Meridian.
I insist.
Never watch this episode. Never thinking about it again. Never watching it again. Remember that? I'm gonna, like, 3 years from now on TrekChatz be like, remember that time Loxana Troy was in Heat? We're gonna laugh about it. That's it. Okay, I'm rubbing my hands together, folks. Let's get into it. Let's talk social commentary.
Okay.
The gold nugget at the end of the rainbow is past tense parts 1 and 2, which are a bit of speculative fiction about what if two people of color and a white girl went into 2024, what would happen? What does 2024 look like when you're in 1994? Well, bad is the answer. This episode starts with Cisco trying to visit his sister in everyone's favorite location, Portland. And ending up in a time warp that takes him and Bashir and Dax to 2024 San Francisco. Him and Bashir are brought to the San Francisco wasteland area, which is a walled off corner where they leave the poor people to die, basically. There's no jobs, there's rioting, there's fighting. This is the year 1994, so the 1992 LA riots were just happening and are still in the news to this day. Rodney King just happened. It's fresh. And meanwhile, Dax is having an upper class little, sort of like Jane Austen adventure with a handsome man named Chris. But thankfully, that part of the plot redeems itself because she uses the resources of this rich guy, Chris, to save Cisco and Bashir, who need to get out before the Bell riots happen, which were a key piece of American history, where some riots happened in San Francisco, California, after the death of a man by the last name of Bell. And his death sparked rebellion and caused the end of these sort of walled off areas and led to more progressive change that we see in the modern times of DS9. So in trying to not affect the timeline, they extremely affect the timeline. Bell dies early. Cisco takes the role of Bell and claims to be him as the rebels take over. They rob a bank. Part 2 is all about them in the bank robbery situation, the different robbers, the different rebels, talking about what does our rebellion look like? How do we cater to demands, but also getting what we want, which is ultimately what everybody wants, is jobs and freedom. And the media doesn't want to give them that. The rich people don't want to give them that. They're asked to give up their wants and needs. And ultimately, Cisco is able to leave with the memory of Bell still being there and having died tragically. So he doesn't actually change the timeline, except he's now considered Bell in a little bit of twist at the end of part 2, where they're like, here's a picture of Bell. It's you, idiot. And he's like, ooh, that's going to be hard to explain to Starfleet.
Whoopsie.
That's the episodes. What did you think, man? I want to know sincerely, before we talk about my like notes and maybe what you read of my notes, what did you think when you were watching Past Tense?
So as a history, social studies teacher, or someone who's a history major, I always find these kinds of episodes really fascinating, where it's like, okay, we're kind of, it's our future, the viewer's future. I mean, it's our present. Really, it's our past because it happened a couple months ago.
Yeah.
But to the viewers in 1994, it's your near future, and it's these sci-fi characters' distant past. And so they are interacting with things that are historical to them, but are future to us. And what are the like judgments? Yeah, it's exactly like a newsroom.
Sorry to ruin it for you.
Yeah. So it has all of the thinking and the preoccupations of history, but it's still in the context of something that is science fiction, which is like you got your peanut butter and my chocolate, and I love it. The social commentary here is good, but also not good. It's like weirdly toothless in some ways, but very didactic in other ways, because they're doing this whole thing where they're like, okay, in the 2020s, every major city in the United States has one of these sanctuary districts where essentially they've taken all of the people who are out of a job or don't have a place to live.
Undesirables.
Yeah, these people who are looked down upon by more established members of society, they're all getting funneled into this walled in district, sanctuary district, and they're kind of like contained there. And it's just sort of become a reality of life in the 2020s that we just accept that that's how society works. And I think it's meant to be metaphorical for the way that people in those positions are treated in our society today, where they're not necessarily purposefully put into a sanctuary district, but they're treated with the same disregard in our modern lives as these individuals are. So the episode's trying to make a point about that. But like, there's this line that really stuck with me where Cisco's talking about the significance of the Bell riots. And he says, the reason we shouldn't interfere is because they're going to lead to changes in these issues that have been plaguing the country for over 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
What issue is he talking about when he's talking about something that's been plaguing the country for 100 years? Because it's like
You talking about
poverty,
1924? You talking about the World Wars then?
right? I guess it's a point about like urbanization and like how people are treated in urban environments in cities when they just can't hack it, or
Yeah.
when they have other barriers to their success. Um,
The
but they're
striation of different classes is, I think, what he's talking about. The like
yeah,
burgeoning class divide.
I don't know. There's just like this kind of they're kind of bringing together things like systemic poverty, but then ignoring a lot of the other things that come along with that in the American context, like race. And there's just not really any regard for that, which, like you're saying, this being contemporaneous with the Rodney King riots, it's like we're kind of
Why did that happen? Let's read about why that happened. Who was involved in those riots and why?
we're missing like a key aspect of that, right? And
Mm-hmm.
just kind of not addressing it. I'm not saying that it has to be about that or about that way, but if you're like, no, this is, you're on a sci-fi show where you could go to an alien planet and do like an alien thing like this, but you're
Mm-hmm.
saying, no, 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 this is San Francisco, California in 2024. So you gotta deal with the history that you're walking into, and they kind of do but kind of don't. And then there's also this angle of, oh well, there's also people with Bashir mentions like there's somebody with schizophrenia. There's this whole thing of the DIMS, which are individuals who have mental illness or a psychological condition that can't be treated by medicine at the time, or it can be but there isn't
They're
like
choosing not to.
centralized medicine
Medicine.
to treat it. So they're kind of doing that. I don't know. It's just odd. Like you're making a point, but you're also not. And then there's this whole thing in the second half where people are going on camera and saying, I just came here looking for a job and I'm not a criminal. And like that's then kind of entering into this rhetorical space of like immigration in the United States. And that's an issue where that is like happening in this way right now,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And that's also something that's not really touched upon or talked about or addressed here. So whatever, I get it, it's allegorical, but it is just kind of weird to me when you're doing a show where you could go to Space Town and have a Space Town allegory, and instead you say no, we're going to go to your backyard and do an allegory. And it's like, but then this is not Allegory Town.
Right.
This is now America, and you're doing America. I
Exactly.
don't know. So that was strange to me.
Yeah, I just, we bring up the race thing, and I don't know if it's as easy to say as they don't address race in this, because like I said, they chose the African American captain and the Middle Eastern
True.
doctor on
True.
purpose to be the ones who are there. They get treated worse by default because of the way they look, not just because they dress funny, because people are like, I feel less trusting of you. That's the racial part happening.
Very true.
So many of the characters in this are white, though, if not almost all of them, besides, our two mains. And race is an important part of this. And I think, this is an election year. We're like literally weeks away from a really major election in American history. And so I am seeking political storytelling that speaks to our present moment. And this episode was really hyped to me, right? People like made memes about the Bell riots this year in August, and I was like, oh, I can't wait to watch that episode. People
Oh,
love.
really?
Yeah,
That's
people are
funny.
like, oh, we're so excited to like. I heard people even say like, you guys, Chatz just missed the Bell riots episode. It's one of the best of the series, and I'm like, dog, if this is the best of the series, then like we got to do some reassessing of DS9, because like I do think this episode
I
is
yeah.
it's smart for 1994 is what I'm trying to get at. It's quite smart. It's not brilliant. But it's a network sci-fi show, and I think it's always important to remember that sci-fi and horror are the two genres that tend to most accurately reflect the anxieties of the time they're made. Horror especially in a lot of ways. But like, what are we afraid of? What is in the news that's got people scared?
Yeah.
And so it's useful as a historical context for us to be like, well, not only is that stuff a kind of prescient, yes, there are places where like there's massive wealth inequality. It's gotten worse. 2024 San Francisco is a hellscape, but for different reasons. They kind of got it right, but they kind of got it wrong. Like, we have listeners, and you've spent some time in the greater San Francisco area, and we have listeners who are from there who know that, like, it's this massive divide of, like, don't look at the homeless people, but we have all the tech companies that you could ever ask for in the same city.
Right.
That's true. So on one hand, it's quite prescient, but on the other hand, it's like, okay, it's not that hard to be prescient. When you study history, things tend to repeat themselves. These things just tend to happen. And so prescience is not, it shouldn't be enough. I think you should also be trying to say something bigger. So disappointed by the end of part 2, and so much of part 1 is like Bashir being like, they have the technology to fix this. They have medication for schizophrenia. They have this. Why aren't they using it? And Cisco over and over again shrugs his shoulders, and at the end might as well be looking at the camera when Bashir is like, how could this happen? And he's like, I don't know. Credits.
Yeah.
It's like,
right.
You're telling me, dude, I know that. We worked on it. My parents' generation worked on it. They did their best, and things got worse, unfortunately. It's really sad to say. I don't feel better about this. I don't feel like I learned and felt a kinship with the writers of this 1994 episode of TV. Instead, I feel like they did their best, and it didn't land with me the way I wanted it. I really wanted this episode to land.
Yeah, I think, I do think that these 2 episodes are pretty good. Like, I can see the case that they're some of the best of the show. I don't agree necessarily that they're like among the best of what we've seen so far. I think Avery Brooks is phenomenal. Throughout, as he always is. But I agree with you that, like, I live in New York City. I see people who don't have a home on a daily basis, and I constantly am coming into contact with moments where I'm choosing to, like, harden myself against the suffering of other people. I see dozens, hundreds of other people doing that as well on the sidewalk, in the subway. This is a real part of life in the 21st century that the episode is speaking to, but it's speaking to it in a way that feels condescending to me.
Big time.
The way that Bashir is like, I just can't believe that they would do this. Like, what the heck? And is also making it this issue of, kind of individual morality and moral choices, when what ends up happening in the course of the Bell riots is the point of it is like, you can't necessarily solve this through individual action entirely, because they try to do that. They're trying to speak to this woman who's this detective and representative of the system. She's in conversation with the governor, and the best they can get out of her is her saying, like, the governor's going to think about it, I guess, and get back to you. And it just speaks to, like, their deeply rooted structural issues with why things are the way they are. And they kind of show a path towards, well, there needs to be more awareness. Everybody gets in front of the camera and tells their story, and maybe that's part of it. But, like, these issues are not as simple as just wagging your finger at the viewer and saying, how could you let it get like this? Come on, what are you talking about? Can you believe the 21st century? And it's like, I appreciate that I'm being asked to reckon with these things, but I feel like the episode is not doing that with me. It's like doing it in a kind of judgmental posture or a holier than thou way, because we have these characters who are coming from a far future where they just don't have these problems. They just don't exist in that way in their society. So I don't know. It's just the whole vibe of that felt off.
It's because it's proscriptive and not prescriptive. It's like, here's what you shouldn't do, not what you should do. Don't let this happen. Don't let it get worse. And it's like, oh, it kind of just happened. They never dive into the truth, which is that stuff is systemic, and it does take collective action and things like the Bell riots to start the gears of change, right? Like you have to have
Mhm.
this. Unfortunately, blood gets spilled a lot on both sides, but I don't know. The episode just takes the side and the empathy of a lot of characters I don't even like that freaking old man cop who decides that he's woke.
Vin.
Vin, he's turbo racist until he's really woke because there's bigger cops than him, and he's like, "Whoa, they got real cops! Holy shit! I suddenly sympathize with your cause." What a dumb concept, Vin.
I think what they're yeah, I think what they're trying to go for, and something I think is really brilliant, and I'll give this two-parter credit, because I think they play this better than any two-parter I've seen. This is definitely in the conversation for me of best two-parter of DS9 for
Sure.
sure.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
structurally, what they do is they slowly introduce you to the world. They shove Cisco and Bashir through the bureaucracy of it and
Mm-hmm.
just have you live in a day in the life of somebody who's in this society. Oh, it's so annoying. We're waiting in line to get processed. We need to have an ID card to even prove who we are. We have to wait in line for the breakfast and the dinner and stuff like that. And along the way, we meet all of these characters, the cops who arrested us, the clerk who processes us at the office, that kind of thing. And then they take all of those same side characters and shove them all into the office in the hostage situation in the second half.
Mm-hmm.
So you spend all of this time understanding everybody's role in the status quo, and then you disrupt all of that to watch these characters question, how have I been complicit in allowing the world to become what it is?
Yeah.
And I think that's really cool and really well done. It's a bit cartoonish with Vin, like you're saying, and I think the spirit of it is, let's get the cops to realize that they're cops and they copped their way into this. And he's like, "Oh shit, I'm a fucking cop. What the fuck?" But I don't know. It's like a little silly. Him and his wife guy buddy who just wants to go home to his family. Uh, yeah, I think the woman who's the clerk is incredible.
Yeah.
Is a great character,
She's
and
so good.
that actor brings it. Amazing work, and I
Totally.
love her monologue to Bashir where she's talking about one of the first people that she ever processed who there was like a warrant out for her because she abandoned her child because she couldn't raise and feed her child, and she just let this woman go through into the sanctuary district even though she wasn't supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
She thinks
Mm-hmm.
about her all the time, like, where is she doing okay, how's her kid doing? And it's just weighing on her, like constantly being face to face with the consequences of this system and just operating within it.
Right.
um
Because she
Such
just
a
needs a
good
job. She's
character.
like,
Yeah.
I'm happy this stuff's gonna get shut down, even though I'm gonna get fired. Which like the
Yeah.
scales balance out. People lose out when other people gain. That's how this is supposed to work, right? It's sad,
Mm.
but it's true. That's cool that they showcase her.
Mm.
To that point, I really wish they did more with. I believe his name is he's BC. We learn his name later is Biddle Coleridge, the young guy who joins them. I wish he was more than a
Mhm.
joke character. I think that there's a lot of potential heart and pathos to be found in a guy who's like none of this ever works for me. The system has never worked in my favor. I'm a
Mhm.
totally normal guy otherwise. Like he seems like, neurotypical and of a sound body and able bodied, and yet
Mhm.
it's just like he keeps getting dealt bad hands. But instead the episode is like he sees Dax and he's like, "Whoa, a girl!" And then Bashir hugs her and he's like,
Mhm.
"Damn, foiled again, huh? Forever alone." Like,
I
come
mean,
on.
it's really funny that this is from 1994 or whatever.
Yeah.
When like he's wearing a fedora and he's got a neck beard. He's like the stereotypical,
Yeah.
incel character guy. Um, and there is something a little bit prescient about that that's also lost, I think, in taking the race element out of it, because he's representative of this group that's called the Ghosts, and their whole thing is they are in the sanctuary districts, but they haven't integrated into those communities very well.
Right.
And there's something in that about, like, he feels like he deserves more. He's a dispossessed, young white man who
Yeah.
just wants to like take it out on people and see other people suffer. And yeah, I think he is really just kind of reading as like, it reminded me a lot of the movie Falling Down, which we watched with friend of the show Ryan Slawinski over on his podcast Spit and Polish.
Mm-hmm.
And
Totally.
that movie is this sort of like this white guy with a gun who tears through um, 90s Los Angeles because he's mad that he got a parking ticket or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
Like he just kind of cracks one day.
Right.
And I think, you know, in the 90s, in 90s media, there starts to be an awareness of this character, the kind of like, you know, like the Ed Norton in American History X, like the neo-Nazi guy, or just the like feeling comfortable with being racist again and violent white guys.
Fight
But
Club, also
not
Edward Norton, same thing.
Fight Club, like but not necessarily yet the self-awareness or the criticism of those archetypes.
Yeah.
So we end up getting this character here who's like frightening, and I think effectively is playing the role of antagonist within the space of the hostage situation, but we don't really understand his archetype yet culturally, in order for him to be well-rounded here.
You love that scene where Cisco's like, "It seems like you're not going to be happy unless you get to shoot someone tonight, huh?" And the guy's like, "It would probably help." And it's like, it weirdly echoed Odo with his not son being like, you just have a violent spirit in you, huh? We need to work on that, because every young man experiences rage at some point, and that needs to be worked on. Lots of potential, not really handled. The thing is that this episode has a lot of time for stuff like Chris and Dax flirting, and Dax going to a business party. And I think it's smart from a writing perspective to put two of our characters in the low income district and one character in upper society.
To do the have and have nots thing.
That's actually like straightforward and pretty smart, because she goes to that dinner party and everybody's like, "Oh, the New York Trotskyists are at it again." I'm glad we don't have to worry about that on the West Coast. God forbid we have any riots, but thankfully the sanctuary districts will stay forever. And it's like, beating you over the head. You need to understand the rich people are bad here. And yet the end point of it is not just like rich people are bad. It's what is the line? Bashir asks him like, "What's going on? Why does this happen?" And then Cisco says, "It's not that they don't give a damn, doctor. It's that they've given up. Like, people here just like can't fight anymore. People lost their will to change." My last, I actually have a couple more points, but I think also this show is also, speaking of it, like it trying to be proud of our main characters, it's making the broader point that the way that we get to the idealistic society of Starfleet, of the Federation, is thanks to these things. It took 100+ years ago, things like the Bell Riots to happen, for people to die, for blood to be shed, for revolution to happen, before finally we come out of it better. The tragedy, of course, being that we're not really that much better. We still bring the ills of our past with us. That's all wrapped up in there. But again, I'm like English classing and otherwise mostly paper thin metaphor here.
Yeah, I think there's that question too of, or that way that the episode's operating, where there's sort of like a right way to rebel, and it's not that Cisco and Bashir need to make sure that a riot happens or a rebellion happens or whatever. Specifically, they need to make sure that the hostages are not killed, because they need to make sure that there's this like martyrdom
they
story.
tell their story.
And they also need to make sure that the public looks upon these individuals favorably, which I think on some level makes sense. I think is also kind of this almost paternalistic approach to the historical situation that removes the agency of the people who were involved in it, because you think about like that kind of thinking was actually pretty central to the way that the civil rights movement in the 1960s operated, where it's like, okay, television plays a critical role in public perception.
Correct.
And the way that we dress, the way that we show up to particular events when we choose to not engage with the police, and then it gets televised on, national media, us getting beaten on during a peaceful march, and that shifts public opinion. That's a thing that matters and was part of how the civil rights movement operated. And that was a strategy that was planned and enacted by the people who were a part of the movement. But in this episode, like, who is a part of this movement and leading it? It's this one, like, nice older white guy who they run into in an apartment building.
Yeah.
And who is he? Like, he doesn't have any friends, or
he just has a son.
He just has a kid and a wife and a name, and he gets killed. But like, what does he represent, and why is he being positioned as like the one good rebel who knows how to rebel the good way? That felt strange to me. And the fact that within the residents of the district, Cisco and this guy maintain that there's a hierarchy between the gimmies, the dims, and the ghosts. They're like, we got to bring in, Cisco's like, bring in some gimmies. I don't trust these ghosts. And it's like, there's this, even within this, resistance thing that's supposed to be about egalitarianism, equality of opportunity, everybody having a chance at the life they want to have, there's this tacit acceptance that, like, but there are some bad elements or some people who can't be redeemed. And the episode is kind of like undoing its own premise in a way that I find really, really weird.
Yeah, it's honestly, it's part of the problem of it being a two-parter is they have so much time to keep fleshing out that I'm like, you kind of undid your basic message, which is like, this riot needs to happen so that we can get the society that we have. Like, Starfleet stops existing and they can't rescue us if that guy dies. That's how the part 1 ends. That should be your basic message. And then they're like, but also this 21st century society needs to change. There's all these factions within the people in the sanctuaries. The rich people have their own thing going on. They rescue that. Like, it just becomes bloated by the end that I'm like, just get to the end here, guys. So, speaking of getting to the end, I want to talk about my stray notes and then hear yours.
Yeah, let's do it.
Obsessed with the line where Chris is saying he's very into Dax's tattoos. He says, I had tattoos too. I actually got a Maori tattoo like everyone else in the 90s in high school. But I had to get rid of it so I could work as a big shot. They don't let you work as a big shot if you have tattoos. Just funny. Whatever. It's funny. I love him.
Roasting all of Gen X.
Exactly right.
It's so funny.
Yeah. Bashir in this entire two-parter is mostly there to be like, why? And then he grows a beard and he suddenly becomes the hottest philosopher ever in existence. I'm like, geez Louise. I'm a fan of Alexander Siddig. And then in part 2, my only note is, this scene is weird without context, but Clint Howard appears in past tense part 2 as a weird guy who thinks he's invisible for about 5 seconds.
Right.
So the context is that Clint Howard, brother of Ron Howard, acclaimed actor himself, has been in Star Trek before. He, when he was a child, was in the third TOS episode ever called The Compromise Remover as a weird villain who has different ages. So he was like 7. Then he's in DS9. He goes on to be in Enterprise, Discovery, and Strange New Worlds. So Clint Howard has spent his entire life being in Star Trek, basically. Which I just think is cool, but like, this character is nothing. It's just weird. He's the only one who believes that they're aliens, by the way. I just wanted to point out Clint Howard real quick, give him his flowers. He's a good actor.
It's the only part of either where main characters speak to someone who's classified as a dim.
Correct.
And there's this like very uncomfortable distance, and I guess it's supposed to be like, look, they're treating him so well. Dax is treating him with respect or whatever. But like,
Yeah.
no, they're not. They're just
No.
trying to get her comm badge back. It's strange. I don't understand what they were going for there.
If you want to see a series that, or a book rather, that handles the concept of Dims way better, as in like people that society deem not intelligent enough to engage with the rest of us. I love this plotline and how it's handled in Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. It's my favorite plotline in that book. So they have a very similar thing, and it's like actually one of the main characters is that they don't even bring it. It's not in Blade Runner, which sucks. But yeah. Any stray notes you got on these two?
Yeah, I got a few. Let's see. I was so excited that it was 2024. I was like, wow, this is great. I loved the wife guy, Vin's partner, who the whole time is like, Vin, can I just go home? My wife's gonna be so mad.
Oh, my wife's
and
so pissed.
The fact that they pay that off in the second episode, and he's like, God, as soon as I saw him, I'm like, yes, the wife guy's back, and he's gonna talk about his wife. This is great. It's always funny to me when shows are like, yeah, we're here in San Francisco, and then one of the cops is the most like New York. What the fuck? My name's Ben. Fuck you. Like, this guy doesn't live in San Francisco.
No,
what are you talking
only
about?
way it's San Francisco is someone's like, I know it is because I saw the Golden Gate Bridge. Like, there's nothing else. Nothing.
Yeah, we're not gonna show it to you, by the way, but just trust us.
Not even a background shot of it on fire. No.
Yeah.
We can't afford that.
No. The guy, then what was his name? The white guy with the gun, who's the ghost?
Oh,
GC. What was it?
I believe it's GC. Yeah.
He keeps calling Cisco like new boy or something.
BC. Sorry.
BC.
Yeah, he calls him like boy and stuff, and I was like, you guys know there's like a racial context to that, huh? You're aware?
That was, yeah.
I had the same thought, dude. Yeah.
That was a lot. Let's see. Wife guy. Everybody tells me that.
I do wonder if that's
Avery
the closest
Brooks
they could have gone to racism, by the way. I wonder if that's the closest they could have gone.
Yeah, I mean, maybe there is something there of like, what is gonna make it on TV, right?
Yeah.
Like, maybe there was a desire to address those themes, and if we're being charitable, it's like, well, what's the closest we can get to this without being explicit about it? I suppose that's the charitable reading. Avery Brooks is given every possible level he could give. There's this great moment where he's yelling at everybody, and BC says, I thought we were on the same side here. He says, we are, but you get on my nerves, and I don't like your hat.
Awesome. That's a Cisco line of like, I'm really mad, I'm not gonna say a bad word.
Yeah. Dax has this great like gender bendy outfit, by the way, in the second one with the 3-piece suit thing.
I was gonna ask you what you thought about it. Yeah, it is gender.
Good. It was good. I loved it. Great costume. By the way, meanwhile, this is a little pet peeve that I have with time travel stories is when the time travel affects the present in real time. That never makes sense to me. I don't like it. It totally takes me out of it. And so they're like, Kira and O'Brien have to do something. They're just going to go to random moments in the past and try to find everybody. So you
speaking of padding, speaking of episode padding, by the way,
nothing, absolutely nothing. Them going to the 60s and it's like down. These people just got high in a van. Oh no, we just transported away right in front of them. Like nothing. Stop it.
Is that what you got?
Anyway, that's what I got.
I actually am willing to give these A's. I'm willing to give both of these A's.
I think the second part is better than the first part.
Okay.
Like I'd be willing, as much as I'm like nitpicking and like really closely analyzing the episodes and criticizing, they went for it and did a thing.
Yeah.
And I would be willing to give the second half an S because they really were trying a thing. But we could also give them both A's.
No, I think it's AS. Yeah. I think that it's worth noting that the second one is a lot better. It does a lot. It's more concentrated because it's less about like I'm reading a new sci-fi book and they're spending 20 minutes explaining the social structure, and more about okay, well, we got the bank, now what happens when you get the bank? So I find it more interesting. I almost wish that was it. Like, we dropped into time and the riots are happening, we're in the middle of it, what do we do? Like, it almost didn't need the first part.
Yeah, it's sort of like I'm grading it much more harshly because I know that the episode can take it and stand up to it, to that level of scrutiny. And I would much rather they swing for the fences and really try to say something here than Luoxana has a headache and now everybody wants to fuck.
Hell yeah, brother.
It's like, I'd rather this.
I hope the video person enjoyed me just bumping my nose against the mic, by the way. That was funny. Visual humor. Accidental.
All right, we got one episode left.
Welcome to hour 3 of TrekChatz 14, by the way.
Life support.
This episode's on life support because it's so boring.
It's tragically boring. It's such a bummer.
Because it's such a cool idea in it. This is, for me, I'm like, this is the first episode I'm watching from my new apartment. Vedic Bareil's in here and he might die. I predicted the end of this episode like 3 minutes in. There's no surprise. It's exactly what you expect. The buildup is there. There's barely any plot. It's just back and forth. I wanted more. Okay, so basically the setup is, sorry to hijack this from you.
No, go for it.
Vedic Bareil and Vedic Wynn are here for some big peace talks with the Cardassians and a bunch of other ambassadors. The big plan is that they're going to make a peace treaty between them and start doing things like reparations and forgiving each other for past crimes. That's going to be huge for both races. The problem is that Vedic Wynn is bad at her job and so uncomfortable with Cardassians that she can't do it. So she needs Vedic Bareil to be the, core negotiator. The problem is that Vedic Bareil has an accident at the beginning of the episode that puts him in critical condition. And although he is healed, he would have to be basically unconscious for a long period of time to fully heal. Instead, he asks Bashir. Bashir offers him an experimental treatment that says this will allow you to live for sure, alive and awake, for a little while longer, and will definitely make your condition worse after that. Bareil decides to do that for the sake of the Bajoran people, and although he's able to help get this peace treaty passed finally, he dies, and Vedic Wynn is taking over. And it's like, The only thing I didn't predict is I thought that Vedic Wynn was did this on purpose.
Yeah, right.
And it didn't even seem like it was that.
No, I think that works for me. There are some characters who distrust her. Bashir, says accuses her of wanting this to happen.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does.
And trying to take all the credit for herself. And what I like about the episode is she never fights too hard against those accusations. She's definitely, this is working to her benefit. This situation being resolved is good for her, but she hasn't done anything nefarious per se. She's just like an imperfect actor in the situation. And I like that a lot better than her having engineered this situation. When she asked at the beginning, was it sabotaged? It makes you wonder, did she sabotage it? But no, she's actually wondering if it was sabotaged. And she actually has developed a lot of respect for Bareil and what he's doing for Bajor and his ability to kind of swallow his pride and be her right-hand man, even though he should have gotten the job by all rights. I think what's kind of dull and slow about the episode is that there's just no acknowledgement from her of her role in this, right? He should just have her job because he's basically doing it, and she doesn't quite feel bad enough to me in this. And it also just feels sad that the reason that Bareil dies is because she didn't do her homework, If she had just read the logs, she could have done this negotiation or something. So it all feels kind of pointless and sad, in a sad way for our guy to go out.
Sad for Kira too.
Yeah.
After this episode aired, the producers received an extremely angry email from a group calling themselves the Friends of Vedic Bareil. By the way, we just had Friends of Angelo Moscate, by the way. Shout outs to the homie. The email angrily protested the death of Brile, and enclosed were pictures of a memorial service that they held for him. I love Star Trek fans so much. You guys are so awesome. I don't know if he's worth it. I mean, I thought he was good. I did think he was a great character, but and I think this is going to be great development for Kira. But yeah, no, nothing doing for me. Don't even have a lot of notes on it. I was like, this was for me, man. This was my celebration for getting my internet hooked up, and I was like, all right, time to watch Star Trek. And I was like, oh
yeah,
okay.
Look,
so.
I think the bummer is, on paper, this makes total sense. Vedic Bareil has kind of outlived his usefulness as a plot mover.
Exactly.
In some
That's
ways.
why he dies, really, is, we've expended him.
Because he's also not quite... He doesn't really work as like, oh, it's my boyfriend, Bareil, who's here to do the comedy episode with us. It's not fun when he has a crush on Dax in the everybody has a crush on each other episode. We don't want to see him, chumming around with the crew like that.
Yeah, he's not.
So
one of them.
It always feels like he's this guy who's all about noble self-sacrifice. So of course he would die in the service of making sure that this treaty passes. But I don't know. I think it just kind of feels very arbitrary here, and you can almost sort of see through and see that the show is like, okay, because there's so many moments in this season up to this point where they want to play around with Kira being romantically entangled with Thomas Riker, or what's going on with her and Odo. And then it's like, oh yeah, isn't she dating Bareil? Shoot, I guess we gotta
get rid of that guy.
That.
It was always weird, it's always been a weird relationship.
Yeah, so he kind of just becomes like a annoying thing that we have to keep track of for 100%. Continuity's sake, which is a bummer because I think he's an interesting character, and they didn't have to kill him to end their relationship, but I can see why they felt like they had to, and why this seemed like the noble end that he deserved.
Yeah,
it just doesn't quite click.
My last big note on the A plot is the final note is that Bashir tells Kira, we have other things we can do. She's like, well, why can't you just like replace his brain that's broken with a positronic brain? And he says, well, it's like ship a Bareil of Theseus. If I do that, that's the body of Bareil and not the brain of him anymore. To me, there's a broader point to be made about like disability rights activism here, of like things like AIDS or surgeries to improve your mobility and access to your mind don't fundamentally change who you are. That's not how bodies work. It depends on what you believe in. If you believe in the soul, you believe in the body. I get why a doctor would say that. I totally get why Bashir would say that. I just want to point out that, not just to be like, I'm woke, you guys, but like I found that very off-putting. Yeah. And when I was a kid, I never used to question lines like that. But now I'm like, okay, but if you told me that like the love of my life could live, but we have to replace part of his brain with metal, but you're like, is he still your boyfriend? It's like, yeah, he is. Like, that's okay. I know it's a different brain. Complicated topic, not for us to discuss, really, I think.
Yeah, there's definitely, it's pretty fraught, the whole, like, he's more machine than man now, that trope. I think they try to make emotional sense when they have that moment where half of his brain has been replaced, and he notices that, like, Kira's touch doesn't feel the same way to him. Yeah. Like, it feels far away. And you can understand the sadness of that and why Bashir doesn't want to witness it.
Yeah.
And also, this is a world where Data is a person, and we spent a whole 7 seasons insisting that Data is a person.
And he's got a full positronic brain.
Right. So why, like, it just is, if you can create a brain and you have a character who is a brain, positronic brain, and then Bashir's like, well, but there's a spark of life in the biological brain that we can't replicate, then what are you saying? Like, what do you believe here?
Exactly.
It doesn't quite, they don't line up. Let's talk about the B plot real quick. Really good stuff. Finally, Nog is back. Earlier when you left, I'm saying that as if I don't like Nog. I love Nog. I adore Nog. There wasn't enough Nog up to this point. When you left earlier, I was talking about Nog.
What? I can't wait to listen back.
I was just talking about how Nog's great. There's not much to it.
What are you saying?
And this episode is like a character assassination of Nog.
It is. It totally is.
It sucks.
You remember last season, like towards the end of last season, when Cork was like, when there was the woman, the other Ferengi, and he was like, what?
Yep.
And that was fascinating, but it was like, oh, I can't, because women in our society need to be naked and chew our food for us and be subservient. Thumbs up, bye. We forgot about that, and we were able to compartmentalize that. And then Nog is like, I grew up thinking that, and that's how I treat women. I don't know why I can't find a girlfriend. Speaking of incel behavior, dude, the scene where they're at dinner is so uncomfortable that I wanted to rise out of my skin. Fortunately, it's blissfully short. But yeah, this B plot about Jake finds this girl who's like him, who likes him, and goes on a date with him. And Nog is like, well, you're going to invite me and ask her if she has a friend, right? Of course you are, because that's what friends do, right? Jake, I've unfortunately known friends like this before. I'm not friends with him anymore. But then he goes on the date, and Nog is the most cartoon misogynist. Why isn't she eating my food? Why does she think she's funny? She's so stupid. Ugh, gross. Girls fucking suck. Both girls leave. Jake's mad at him. He's like, I'm never going to talk to him. Cisco's like, you got to be friends with your friend, dude. Homies for life. He's worth keeping around. And I think there's something, just real quickly, something really interesting about how, like, Cisco, especially when he talks to Jake about Nog now, he's not, when he met them in season 1, it was like, that Nog kid's an idiot. You don't want to be with that guy. And now he's like,
right.
In theory, you guys are going to spend the rest of your lives together. And if you guys want to make that work, I didn't say Siri, I said theory, you idiot. My phone, guys. In theory, that's like really cool, right? Like, I'll never forget R.I.P. to your stepdad, but I always think about the time he was like, I'm so glad you guys are still friends, and that your friendship has lasted since 7th grade. The reason we were able to maintain a friendship is we've had fights and talked through them, right? That's how adults work. I just think that sometimes when your friend is so ingrained in a toxic, disgusting culture, you need to decide what matters to you and what is like, well, that's his culture, and what is like a character flaw. You know, I think that there's more nuance to be had, and maybe the show will continue to do stuff with that.
It's such a strange misapplication of like prime directive philosophy to interpersonal relationships, and those two things are totally different.
What a true comparison, though. You're so right. Wow.
Because Cisco is like, and it makes sense why, you know, Commander Benjamin Sisko would have this Starfleet inspired belief of like, well, Ferengi culture is what it is. He's a Ferengi. He was raised that way. You're not going to change his mind. It like doesn't jive with the Sisko who we were just hanging out with in 2024, who was pissed about like people having prejudices. And then he goes back to his time and he's like, anyway, time to pick up my prejudices again. That's what I do. So that doesn't make sense to me. But in a vacuum, okay, there's this Starfleet officer who says, well, all Ferengi are just sexist pigs and you kind of just have to let it rock.
Yeah.
If he's going to say that, Jake, it doesn't make sense for Jake to be like, okay, Dad, sounds good. Like, in what plot does Jake ever respond to his dad like that? There's friction and tension and disagreement. And the whole point of the Jake Nog relationship has been the next generation can do this differently and have a different vision of what an interspecies friendship looks like. Yes. And so it's totally within Jake's rights to be like, you know what? I hold Nog to a higher standard than that. He's my friend and I want to see him be good to people. It's not just like a difference of opinion that he thinks that women are lesser and so I'll just let it rock. That's no. If he's your friend, then you need to challenge him and ask more of him.
Yes, dude. You're cooking so hard right now. I don't keep going.
And it's like, oh, Nog, whatever. And Nog's like, well, I wasn't even saying the grossest stuff. I know that you don't like gross stuff, like how actually women are supposed to chew up our food. So I didn't even say that. Which is like, what? But then they're cracking open the door of Nog even understands that what he's saying is not acceptable in this
Yeah.
situation and that people disagree with him. And where is the impetus for Nog to understand other people's cultures too? There's this like infantilization of Nog that happens in every Jake Nog plot that's really frustrating.
Right. That good point.
Where like, oh, actually it's okay for Jake to be his friend because Jake tutors him, and isn't that so amazing what Jake gives to him? But there's never really discussion of what Nog gives to Jake or how Nog enriches Jake's life. It's always like Jake giving and Jake taking pity on him and Jake accepting him for who he is. But like, that's not a reciprocal friendship. And I don't know. I think this episode just did Nog real dirty, and I'm super mad about it because I love that guy.
I really didn't think you were going to be the Nog guy. I'm happy that you are.
I'm the Nog guy.
Okay.
I love Nog.
We love you, Noggy.
They screwed my boy over. It sucks.
Just, yeah, I want to underline that point you made. I have no reason to repeat it other than I loved it so much. Hold your friends to a higher standard. That's how you maintain a friendship like the Chatz friendship. So we hold each other to a standard, and when one of us says something boneheaded, the other one goes, hey, what the fuck, Dingo? And doesn't go, all right. I mean, he says some stupid shit. Like, you know, sometimes we let each other.
What are you going to do?
It's like, he grew up differently than me. It's like, no, empathy is not just about, like, I get why he said that, but also be like, if I was that person, I would hope that people would correct me and tell me when I'm fucked up. Simple as that. Beautifully said. Good stuff. This episode's a C.
Yeah.
I would love to give it a B, but because I liked Brile, but his plot is not that interesting in this one. Let's give it a C plus actually, because Bashir has that like surgery outfit that we've seen before. They're like all red. I thought that was fun. The surgery outfit.
They got the fun hats on. I like it.
Damn,
that's nice.
Did we do it? Did we just crack the longest? This is probably the longest TrekChatz, huh? Damn.
No way. Haven't we had like 4-hour TrekChatz or something?
Maybe. Well, those are usually gets 1/2. I think one of the ones where I almost vomited was a 2-parter. Good times. Good times.
Okay, our final rankings. D, Fascination. C, Meridian and Life Support. B, The Search Part 1, Second Skin, The Abandoned and Defiant. A, The Search Part 2, The House of Quark, Equilibrium, Civil Defense, The Past Tense Part 1. And S, The Past Tense Part 2. So a much wider range of quality than what we saw in Season 2. Hopefully this season figures it out in the second half. We shall see.
I don't want to look at future episode summaries because I'm going to regret it. No, I won't do it. You know what I will do, though, Magellan?
Let's talk about what we're watching next time.
Yes, sir. You already know. We really do share the same positronic brain, huh?
That's right. We're going back to Xena, Warrior Princess, to start Season 3 of that show. That's exciting. First episode of Season 3 is Season 3, Episode 1, The Furies. Xena battles Ares, the god of war, in an attempt to save her sanity from the curse of the Furies and the life of her mother, Cyrene.
Good stuff. Xena's mom, Ares, Furies. Yeah. This sounds great.
Season 3, Episode 2. Get a load of this. You ready?
Yeah.
Been there, done that. Xena tries to escape a time loop by uniting two star-crossed lovers after Cupid makes a town relive the same day over and over.
Is Cupid the Q of Xena Warrior Princess?
It sure seems like it. But he's sort of like, oh gosh, I'm sorry.
Oh my God.
If Q was like, oh, I didn't mean to.
Instead of like, Picard, please jerk me off, please. I'm so horny right now. I'm not wrong. Tell me I'm wrong.
Oh my God.
Don't look at the video for what I did for that. Don't look at it. I'm sure there's some people who use the video version as an audio, right? Like I stopped putting the audio versions on YouTube because people just use this one as audio, and they're gonna rewind and see the hand motion and be like, oh, I wish I didn't do that. So sorry. Been there, done that. That's gonna be fun, and that's on IMDb listed as a top-rated episode of the series.
I can't wait.
One of like in the top-rated.
I can't wait.
John, where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me on another podcast with my friend Justin called Super Smash Echoes, where we play video games related to the Super Smash Brothers franchise and talk about them. You can also read my writing on my Substack at notthatmagellan.substack.com. Alan, what about you?
You can hear me on a few other podcasts on scanlinemedia.com. I'm on the Creature Quorum. Right now we're doing our playthrough of Pokemon Black and White 2, which will be resuming very soon. Very fun podcast I do with Six, my friend, and who's been on the show before. I also do the Garnet Wager every month, which is a Korean game show review and storytelling podcast. And I'm also doing a World of Warcraft lore podcast on there, kind of fun, where we explain the World of Warcraft lore to our friend Jen. That's a fun one. I think it's called like WoW Boot Camp or something. Just look up World of Warcraft on Scanline Media. You'll find it. And then you can hear me every other month on Talking Marketing. I have the November guest lined up for that. It's a marketing interview podcast, and I am planning big things for my last couple months with the American Marketing Association. So that being said, let's take it to the plug zone really quickly. If you have questions, comments, or concerns about our discussion of DS9 or TNG, or why we should have done TOS first so that we could watch the other episode where they go back in time and fix societal issues. Our email is chatspod@gmail.com, chatzpod@gmail.com. We're at Chatspod on X and Blue Sky. We are Chatz, the television podcast on YouTube. If you're not watching the video version, welcome. We got different thumbnails over there. You can like us, you can subscribe to us, and then you can listen to a more culled down audio version on your podcast platform of choice. I recommend doing both. You can rate us on those podcast platforms like Apple Podcasts and Spotify. That's how the algorithm helps people find our show. It's not a lot of first-time DS9 watch pods out there, so we're, a small but mighty fandom. If you have the financial means, consider supporting us at patreon.com/chatspod. We have tiers at $1, $3, and $5 a month that give you all sorts of bonus content, like you get to spin. You have to put things on a wheel that Magellan spins, and then we watch or do whatever is on the wheel. And then also, that's one piece of content every month, and the other one is something that one of us decides. For the month of October, I had Magellan watch 4 episodes of one of my favorite anime of all time, One Piece, and we talked about One Piece, and that should probably be out by now, I think, or maybe, I don't know.
Soon, not yet.
In all caps, soon. So patreon.com/chatspod gets you all of that at the different tiers, like I said. And we have a Patreon or a Chatz Discord at the $1 tier, or just ask nicely and we'll give you access to the Discord. We talk about stuff. We watch Doctor Who every week. It's fun. It's flirty. It's television. At $5 a month or more, you get everything I just told you, plus a thank you at the end of every main feed episode. And this being a main feed episode, I will say thank you to girlfriend of the podcast, Amanda, Arthur, Emily, Emrys, Felicia, Jen, Justin, Kyrie, Lee, Marcus, May Louise, Magellan's mom, Nick of the Brothers at Infinite War, Noel, Six, and Stefan. Thank you as well to Camilla. She's at Camillastrator on podcast platforms. She did our main feed podcast art, and you should check out her work, Camillastrator. And last but not least, it's time for Chatsims, the segment where we recommend you something or some things to enjoy between now and the next episode of Chatz. Magellan, you get to go first. What is or are your Chatsims for this week?
I want to share a game with you that I found through a YouTube channel. I think the name was... Sorry, there's a new Jimmy High Roller video. Let me just add this to my watch later.
I already watched it.
Oh, is it good?
I didn't watch it. I lied to you. I didn't think you'd ask.
Oh.
Damn.
Wow.
Sorry.
Alex Cheddar is the name of this person. I think he's also written a book called Find the Fox, which is a word search book where throughout the whole book there's just one word defined, and it's the word fox on one of the 200 pages.
That's sick.
And then there's this game called Do Not Find the Fox at donotfindthefox.com. And essentially what it is it's a 4x4 grid, and you have 16 face down tiles, and you click them in whatever order you want. There are, I think, 5 F's, 5 X's, and 6 O's, and you're just trying to click them and not spell the word fox.
Oh, this is fun.
As soon as you do, it kicks you out of the game and you got to start it over. It's pure luck, but you really feel like you're doing something.
This is kind of fun. Hold on. I'm gonna show the listener what I'm doing.
Yeah, it's
This
like,
is cool.
oh, I found the fox. Oh no. But like, there's no strategy here. It's just sort of like,
No.
I felt like so big brain because earlier today I opened it up and I got it through in the first try. I didn't find the
No
fox.
way.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Wait. Got the
Every other
diagonals
time
really
I've
get
tried
you.
Yeah, every other time I've tried it, I've gone like 30 tries and then been like, okay, I have things I need to do.
Yeah. So I could lose a couple minutes
Anyway,
to this.
so it's fun. Do not find the fox.com.
Fantastic. Oh, I love little games. We need more websites that are just little games.
I know. I just did it. I didn't find the fox.
Oh, I'm impressed. I'm impressed.
Yes.
Call me a stamp because I'm impressed. Is that how stamps work?
Call me a stamp because I'm impressed. Yeah, maybe. What's your chat zone?
I don't have one. Oh my god, I did it! Oh my god, look, listener, I did it! Serotonin flooding my brain. Oh, I don't have one, guys. I've been moving. Let me tell you, I told them a little bit about moving when you were gone. Like my experience with it. Recommendations for moving. 1, get friends who are able-bodied and can help you move. That's huge. Number 2, pack as much stuff as you can before moving day because you will always find more stuff that you're like, wait, I forgot to pack that too. Oh god, there was that thing. Number 3, move 5 minutes away so that the drive is really easy and straightforward. I'm trying to think of some other big ones. If I could do this again and make it easier for myself, basically, is how I'm thinking of it. Like, what would I do? It honestly like went fairly smoothly. I just, it's useful to have 2 copies of your keys so that somebody else can get in when you're not there. Family can be really helpful if you have access to family who can help you. And yeah, that's all I got. Moving, the experience of moving. Use your resources and find ways to get around the parts that make it annoying. And then you get to lay out a new space. And I'm, going to spend the rest of the night just kind of like plopping things around, making it cozy.
That's great.
That's what I got. And I'll have a media chat up next week for sharks. For sure, in English people language. English people? English. Anyways, it's what I'm learning is that there's less and less oxygen in this hallway recording space that I'm in, and I need to open the door soon or I will die. So
oh no.
Thank you the door doesn't close fully, so it is letting air in, but if I didn't do that, there would be no air in here. Thank you to Magellan for being I said Garrett to my Bashir last time. Let's say O'Brien to my Bashir because he is a wife guy. He is in a domestic partnership, and I am in love with everyone. Peace. Engage. TrekChatz out.